afraid of this season. It's a 3-car collision and it's brought out the yellow flag here. So our first caution period as well. And we shall do our very best to see. Oh, the contact is there, and James Hall, it's basically just the unlucky collectee in that situation. That's the 369 machine of Jens Husens and Max Spooner, the third car involved, and we'll have to have a... There it is! Max Spooner. Oh, oh my word! I think Jens Husens might be the car that made the initial contact, as you can see here. Oh, and he's just plowed into the side, and the two E-Team Brit cars, both of them collected. And, oh well. Just as it looked like we were gonna have a nice, clean start. Well, it certainly wasn't to be, was it? And our first caution period of the season. And it's something we better get used to, I think, at this point, because that safety truck is going to be coming out a whole lot more. That's a new addition as well. That's a new truck to have riding around in front of the field. Tim Perry, one of the main actors of last season as well. But one thing I'm not seeing on the grid tonight, and that is something that I wanted to mention upon, but didn't really get the time because of the circumstances here, is that Lucky Dogs Racing and Sergio Hernandez is nowhere to be seen, so we don't have our defending champion, and that might make it all the more interesting. Not for this opening round. The fact that we're racing on a Sunday, of course, the opening night tonight, the Daytona 500, and the final round of the season, the 10th round, which is going to be the Charlotte 400, will be held on Sundays. All the races in between that will be your regular Monday night entertainment. Of course, still under caution. For any newcomers, it's all about looking out for that switch of lanes for everybody, basically, when they go too wide, and that's in European motorsports as well, when the pace car, or the pace truck, if you will, up ahead, turns off the warning lights as well. Well, that means we're getting close to racing again here, because perspective of this here, USR Racing Esports, we're gonna go on board with him. Oh, see, he got touched. But who was to blame in that situation? I don't think it makes us any wiser here, I'm afraid. James Hall only just exiting the pit lane now. Of course, far from optimal. Let's see what happened just in the seconds leading up to it. This again, James Hall got the by far actually the worst hit of any of these cars. Also the driver that sort of had the very least to do with it in terms of making the initial contact. Flemish Sim Sports, as we saw before, they are of course back and running in the series again. No surprises there. They'll be hoping to field a charge for the championship, and in both championships, because they could very well be competitive both in the drivers and the team standings. As you see now, the drivers are lining up 2 by 2 to green flag formation. Cars have come off on, or the lights are off on the safety truck. With that said, I think going back to racing here, I'm just gonna have to check. Still, great, no connection. Jack Werrell, who will be back with me as soon as possible. Well, then you'll just have to make do with me. I know it can be a pain indeed. All jokes aside, it's very, very good to be racing again here on the ovals, and frankly, I gotta say, a little bit surprised to see Vincent Field look they look so orderly over the opening few laps here that took me a little bit by surprise. Little John Barnes leading the field around. Pace truck is going to swing in right about here at the pit lane, and it's going to be back to green flag racing here from the DynamiXX Daytona 500 and the opening round of the SRW NASCAR Cup Series. And here we are, our second restart on lap 9 of 200. And we're going to see just how they get back into it here this time. A little bit of a closer start, not the same kind of run here. John Barnes trying to get away early yet again, but not managing to give himself the advantage that he seemed to have created for himself on the last occasion. There are some cars getting very, very tangly here, and it's the hybrid cars alongside the QSR machines as well that got a little racy there for a second, and up ahead of affairs. Well, things are still close indeed. Barnes, Sufi, and Ian Roots for the Simracersworld Esports B team. I don't think there's an A and a B team in terms of tiers as such, because it would be surprising. Ian Roots, very, very experienced driver, and of course, the boss man of Simracersworld, one that makes it all happen in the end. Of course, alongside the moderators and organizers of the different series, different leagues, if you will. Tim Perry in the 83 boosted machine, and Robbie Lundgren in the number 9, still very much up there as well. Love these static shots. Get the field collected in such a small amount of space here as well. Really have to be attentive. And the drivers, it's 200 laps of basically being within inches of the car ahead. I've managed to mention this on so many occasions before, but in many ways the dynamics that you see while enjoying these NASCAR races is almost more akin to something like cycling, where drafting and slipstream is not just something used to keep the speed or to gain an advantage on a single straight, but you kind of try and time it there and sit there in a correct position to time your launch to the line on the final lap. We've seen fantastic finishes here again. Now more action kicking off here in the midfield and further back, as 2 lines are opening up, and some drivers are opting for the high line here, obviously thinking that they could be in to make up positions here and there. Look at that, now it's Tim Perry getting a bit of help here from the Flemish car, the 86 machine of Kim Behate. The 83 on the high line as well. That is, of course, Tim Perry and the boosted motorsports car. For those of you who have been watching before, well, that's it's something new to get used to with the amount of delivers. Now look at that move from Tim Perry around the outside, really getting the help from the Flemish car, and they've certainly decided that it's time to make an approach. And an approach they've made, and John Barnes being absolutely swamped there on the low line, and that's very surprising. They're almost going 3 wide. It's Musselwhite and Barnes, the 18 and the 777, and wanting to get in the mix as well, I think, is Maddie Sufi there in the 64 machine. Oh, and they make contact just as we saw that Sufi's gonna hit the wall, and he manages to sort of hit it side on. And I believe that could have been much worse. We're not going to see a yellow flag by the looks of things. So that's a slight surprise. And very, very unfortunate for Maddie Sufi. Here comes a second look at just what happened. Oh, I thought we did, but here we are. And see if we can have a look at just what happened. So it's the 18 car, that's Stuart Musselwhite, who kind of comes down on Matthew Sufi. And locking the front brakes, trying to get the car turned, but there's no escaping that wall. The pace truck is parked there in the middle of everything, and Maddie Sufi has been struck by the big hammer here, I'm afraid, because... Oh, and Musselwhite has had a problem as well, and he's jumped to the pits. So you have to wonder what happened to Stuart Musselwhite. There must have been some sort of damage to his car as well. Oh, you see the contact there is actually between the, what I think is the 27 and the car of Stuart Musselwhite. Well, best just to check. Yeah, there it is. Musselwhite just ever so slightly touched by the 27 car. And obviously makes it very, very difficult to control the machine. I think that was Adam Wright, I'm afraid, there for PSTV Sports. He's back in the frame here as well. And there is a gap of a second and a half opening up here in Roots. Finding himself in a difficult position, and I think that goes for everybody in the backside pack here, because they're gonna have to work very, very hard and not fight one another too hard. Indeed, try to work together in order to close the gap on the pack up ahead. Once you see these splits, it's sometimes very, very, very hard to get back on. Indeed. And we are indeed live and running on YouTube as well. So, oh, and just as I say that, in the background here, there's a massive incident. The 51 of Milan Phaetons very much involved, and that is obviously gonna bring out the yellow flag and another caution period. The second one of this race, and we can hear it from behind there. It's a terrible kerfuffle. Seb Herberer. And here we have a better image, I think, of what happens. It's the 13 car that gets touched against the 211 of Seb Herberer. Just a slight wiggle from both of them, and the cars that got caught up in the mix there. Anything but lucky Seb Herberer. Oh my word. Oh, you see Herberer getting touched ever so slightly, but he also seems to... Oh, I wouldn't call that deviating from your line, but the car just wiggles a little bit, and it doesn't take much more than that for us to have our second caution period of this race. There's the lucky dog there to... Well, was that Seb Herberer, or was that in fact Maddie Sufi in the 64 machine there who got way through it? That might have been it. I think that actually was it, the lucky dog given. Spooner. And once again, the field is going to get collected up and reform behind the pace truck. I spoke to Jack before the race as well, kind of asking, well, how many caution periods were we? We both talked about the fact that we were actually expecting this to on the cleaner side, also because of the nature of Daytona. But of course, the closeness and the bigger aerodynamic effect also means that sometimes you get cars that should grip and then they all of a sudden don't, and it gives you that big little bit of a wiggle. Anyway, most of the field seems to be pitting in here. And who will be pitting out first? Mind you, that's a set of tires used for most of the drivers, I think. Or is it? Or just fuel? Fuel only, and one of the cars overshot it, I'm afraid. by a fair bit as well. So he's going to have to leave it. I think that is the 506 machine of Damien van Immersel. Michael Tyler for Team Brit, who stayed out now ahead of John Barnes. Did take his first pit stop there. Kim Behate second, Tim Perry. Then Adam Wright, Hendrik de Grave, Robert Lundgren, James Hall. Then it's Kurt van Hornacker, Austin Gretorix, 13 machine. They slightly involved with the issue before. A puff of smoke from this. I wonder if that was just a patch of grass or whatever that was. Of course, they're gonna find their positions yet again. I think Austin Gretorix received some kind of race penalty that he's being shipped to the back of the field for. Of course, several types of rule infringements, you could say, that are not sort of league rule, but iRacing rule. Things like overtaking on the right-hand side, I would imagine. But here we are. Another caution period. Lights, I think, are indeed off, which means at the end of this lap, we'll be back to racing again. I am indeed joined again by Jack Werrell.
You are indeed. So sorry about that, Hasse. Just seems like everything that could have gone wrong did go wrong. So of course we had the issue with YouTube, but now of course we are going back out live to YouTube. So hello everybody, with my Wi-Fi connection, got it fixed. A couple of restarts here and there, but here at Simracersworld, if we have an issue, we solve it as promptly as we can, and then make sure we can still bring this stream to you. And of course, I've joined you at the perfect point. Really, we are about to go back green flag racing, just working through turn 2 on towards the back straight. Like you mentioned, Hasse, the lights on the safety truck have now been extinguished, so we will be going green in just a few moments' time. And potentially we could start seeing the busiest point of the race. Of course, the start didn't quite go to plan for a couple of drivers. As I joined the session, I did have my voice chat on in iRacing, and it was Mr. Ian Roots, of course, Mr. Simracersworld himself, just letting everybody know, while you all may be running the iRacing spotter or some sort of external spotter, he did reinforce the fact, even if your spotter does say clear high, clear low, anything like that, give it a couple of seconds just to make sure that any further incidents don't take place.
Yeah, and as I said, he's an experienced gentleman indeed, Ian Roots, so you know what he's talking about. Certainly the advice hasn't been heeded all the way through, although these incidents we've seen has more likely been the result of just cars getting ever so slightly unstable. Anyway, Jack Werrell, we're about to go green again.
We are indeed. So lap 20 is now underway. We will just be ticking on to lap 21, and it is Michael Taylor for Team Brit leading the way in that number 96 machine, or is it John Barnes for Quantum Racing? He's got a good run around the outside. He's got the number 83 of Tim Perry at Boosted Motorsport pushing him around into the lead, and he's left Tim Perry out to dry. There is one of the Flemish machines just sat behind him. I think that could be Hendrik de Grave up on the top. Looking back from John Barnes now, we can see Michael Taylor just behind Tim Perry following along. He has got the run coming off onto the back straight, and then going into Speedway turn 3, he will slowly start to drop back again. Of course, that being on the high line, it's the number 87 of Hendrik de Grave indeed for Flemish Sim Sports in that Toyota Camry, helping him along. There we go, as expected, the low line does just about creep forward, but look at how close Hendrik de Grave is getting, giving him a great run on towards the start-finish line. Next time we cross the line, it will be Tim Perry leading the way, potentially with Hendrik de Grave following along in second place. John Barnes reeling back in there.
Yeah, and you can see how that inside line becomes a little bit quicker once they have to do the corners, but with the helping hand, the Flemish cars, and again, really trying to get involved. And Tim Perry wants every chance to gain position here early days. We saw a pit stop, and a round of pit stops, but a short one indeed. No tires having been changed yet. I might have said something a little too soon there. Michael Tyler that led. Well, he's now being swamped around, and we see the effects of the slipstream and of the air as well. If they wiggle ever so slightly, the side draft, my apologies, as we've seen before and mentioned before, is certainly something to be, well, mindful of. And Jens Husens here is coming into the pits here, Jack. So a green flag pit stop for Jens Husens. That is far from optimal, and at least in my opinion, he'll lose quite a lot of time getting that done and fixed. Meanwhile, Hendrik de Graaf is now moved ahead on the low line, getting every bit of help that he wants from John Barnes on the high side. It's Robbie Lundgren. So the boosted motorsports machines are really finding themselves at the front of a fair. And look at that here, Lundgren helping out for his teammate Tim Perry. And once you start getting these sort of team efforts here, it's really the way to one-up everybody else. Sort of only provide the assistance. It's of utmost necessity. Still, some very, very close racing going on here as we see at the moment.
Of course, having that teammate Hasse is so crucial towards the end of the race. We saw Flemish Sim Sports last time we were here at Daytona really working together, and of course throughout the entirety of the NASCAR series. There you can see the number 83 once again of Tim Perry working his way around the outside. He's got his teammate just sat behind of Rob Lundgren, and they've got a great run heading up towards turn 1, but as previously mentioned, if you're on the outside you will slowly start to get reeled back in by that low line. We're seeing it already. Hendrik de Graaf working his way back through. John Barnes just waiting in the wings, being so patient, and patience is definitely a virtue when you're in a NASCAR. But now look at that, coming back onto the back straight, it's Adam Wright this time for BSTV Esports. A lift there from John Barnes. I think that was more of a comfort lift as both the boosted cars came down, and now that does mean that Adam Wright has been left without much help on that outside line. So it's now 4 cars breaking away on that bottom line, and then we get back to the double stacked cars, Hasse.
Yeah, indeed. And it just goes to show how much time you lose when you're all of a sudden finding yourself all alone on the high side with no cover in front of you and no one really helping out behind. You see everyone kind of scrambling to fall back into that single file line because they know that they're going to get caught out by it. And look at some of them really missing out on positions after positions after positions. I think it's one of the Simracersworld Esports cars. Trying to find some help here from Ian Roots. Maybe trying to get a train of their own going out there. It's the A team and the B team trying the Mac Challenge B by DB machine. It's a team name we're gonna be relishing the rest of the season, no doubt about it. But certainly those here over the opening 25 laps.
Yeah, and we really expected nothing less. Still Tim Perry leading the way. Everybody's slowly started to work their way back into that single file line, and this is where we see what happens with the rest of the race. If we get the complexion nice and early, it gives us more time in theory to read the forecast for the rest of this race. And if everybody's happy sitting single file, it means that there's not really going to be any confusion with the spotters, as previously heard from Ian Reitz, letting everybody know that they've got to give it a few seconds even after the spotter has said clear. Just make sure you've got that comfortable gap before you come back down or go high even following another car. So we're still sat single file on lap the 28 of 200 now. Still Tim Perry leading the way, followed by Rob Lundgren, both the boosted cars up at the front. Then it's Hendrik de Graaf, John Barnes in the Quantum Racing machine. Then we get back to Michael Taylor, the first of the E-Team Brit cars. Then it's Kimber Hay, Adam Wright, James Hall and Anton Dupin. Also joining them is Austin Gray Tracer, John Tusting, before we end up dropping back to the second pack, led by Ian Reitz. That's a great camera angle heading in towards turn 1. And seeing these 2 packs form, is this where you start to think, are these 2 packs going to stay as 2 separate packs for a long while, or until the next yellow flag? Or is Ian Reitz contacting the driver behind him? In theory, it's his teammate, Ian Reitz, driving for Simracersworld Esports Team B, Sepp Herberer for the Team A SRW flag. So do we just wait to see what the pair of those two are going to do? I'm sure they're in contact, and I'm sure Ian Reitz is saying, come on Seb, we really need to get back on this pack.
Yeah, and even if they aren't in contact with one another, it's in everybody's interest in behind to sort of just tucking it there together and try to work on that gap up ahead. But it's grown, I'm afraid now, Jack, to 2.2 seconds. So if they're falling behind at this point already, you know, that gap is going to be very, very, very hard to close in the end. And it's going to be a question of timing, and timing the pushes to the small nudges you can get to one another. In oval terms, it's called bump drafting. It's something we rarely see done on road racing, sometimes maybe in touring cars. But certainly not to the same level of effect as seen here in oval racing and with NASCAR in particular. The gap now 2.5 seconds, and I think, Jack, that tells the story that if this tendency keeps on going, we'll be seeing this pack just steadily driving away from the drivers at the back of the pack.
Yeah, it's all down to what the leaders decide to do, of course. With it being two boosted cars up at the front, they can sit there and if they need to, almost communicate to each other. If Rob decides to just lift off a little bit, it will buy his teammate a little bit of time up at the front, but I'm sure they're more than happy just running nose to tail for the moment. Of course, Rob Lundgren hasn't really got to put that much effort in here. He can do a little lift here and there, a graze of the brakes just to get rid of any of that excess speed. Of course, he will be saving a little bit of fuel, so even going into the pit stops, while everybody might be taking a full tank, of course a full tank will be less for Rob Lundgren because he won't have to fill up his tank as much as his teammates up at the front. In theory, the big gainer from this is probably who we're riding on board with. Michael Taylor. He's got a car just behind him, so he will be getting that aerodynamic benefit, maybe a little bit of a push from behind, and he's also got 4 cars in front where he can reap the rewards from all of that draft assistance. So anybody in the middle of these packs really standing themselves in good stead heading in towards a pit window, because they can pit for less time than the cars in front. As long as they nail the pit entry and pit exit, they could end up working forward.
It's a very good point indeed. The cars ahead are certainly going to be doing what they can to control affairs. But at this point, it's also a lot about arming yourself with a fair bit of patience for a lot of the drivers here in behind, because that patience is going to get you a long way indeed in terms of maybe just saving a little bit of extra fuel, maybe just saving your tires that little bit more, knowing that you've got 4 sets of tires to use over the entirety of the race, and it is indeed a long one. So just how it turns out and just how it plays out over these next, well, it's about an hour and a half or 2. Might even be more. Well, we're gonna have to see. Now, Kim Behay was very close to his teammate up ahead. That's Hendrik de Grave there in the 87 Flemish cars. Those two have been split. And Jack, I'm wondering, I think it's gonna mean anything that they're not able to help one another as directly as maybe the boosted cars up ahead would?
I think it's almost 6 of one and half a dozen of the other, because while having a teammate directly in front of you or directly behind you can be a massive help, and it gives you that confidence knowing full well you've got a bit of reassurance either way, it does mean if you've got a couple of cars in between you, you can almost manipulate those cars to your advantage. And if I were Kim Behay or Hendrik de Grave, more so Kim Behay, you can start really pushing that car in front to close that gap in towards the corners. And of course, the last thing you want to do is make contact in a corner, because that can very quickly go from bad to worse. But if you are one of the Flemish cars, you can just usher each other towards the cars in front, and potentially not necessarily a bump to pass, but if you give them that extra couple of mile an hour going into a corner, if they don't adapt for that or they don't lift off heading into the corner just to bleed off that extra speed, they can end up going high, and that opens up a perfect little doorway for you to work your way through. But I think at this stage in the race, of course, we're only on lap 34, heading on to lap 35 in a few moments' time, of 200. I don't really think it's worth the risk. And of course, with the 4 tyre sets you have available to you, it's not going to make that much of a difference if you start pushing hard now, because everybody's got to make a similar amount of pit stops, whether it be under yellow or we head into a green-white checker stage towards the latter stages of the race. Of course, we've got 4 attempts at green-white checker. After that, it will just finish under yellow, no matter the circumstances. So everybody's running with very similar machinery, fixed setup as well. So it's all down to strategy.
That's something we'd love to see, especially whatever we can get to keep it as close and level as possible. Well, give it to us. You know, with these fixed setups, it's always going to be that they maybe fall into the preference of certain drivers more than others, but still, you know, it's the capabilities of the car very, very equal, and it is indeed a spec series. So while the shell of the cars might be so slightly differing, they'll have the exactly the same drag coefficients, and of course the very same underpinnings, the same 5.7 liter V8. And something we haven't mentioned upon as well, Jack, and something that's all new to NASCAR and this next-gen Cup car, is that they've now got a sequential gearbox. So a 6-speed sequential instead of the old 4-speed manual. And that has to be a massive switch over, a massive change for the drivers as well.
Yeah, it will indeed. I'm sure on road courses it makes much more of a noticeable difference, whereas on the oval you just pin it in 6th and hope that it can and hope that it'll last. But coming into potentially the pit lane, of course, you've got 2 more gears to get through when changing down to your required gear to get down to the required pit speed limit. But it could work because, of course, you get more chances to pick up that engine braking, but that's all just to do with pit stops, which yet again brings into the strategy. So all these little changes and the tiny little things, I think, will slowly start to add up and really make a big change towards the latter stages of the race. I was just looking through the last time we were here at Daytona for the DynamiXX Daytona 500. Anton Dupin and Kimber Haight finished 4th and 5th, of which both of them are out and circulating today. Kimber Haight in 6th, Anton Dupin in 9th. We also had John Tusting finish 2nd in that one, while he was privateer then. He is entered under the Quantum Racing banner this time out, right the way down in 11th place. But we know how quickly the complexion of these races can change. So it's all well and good looking at where people are now, but in 10 laps time, it could have all switched around. And in 100 laps time, it could have all switched around. So we've still got so much racing to get through. So for the moment, I think everybody's just going to settle into their little rhythm and hope that the race comes their way potentially when the next yellow flag comes. And something that could really throw a spanner in the works, one, is that. Who is that? That's Hendrik de Grave right the way down on the apron, trying to work his way up the inside of Rob Lundgren. We'll see who has got the legs heading in towards turn. Yeah, we are 3 wide as well. Who's that on the outside? I think that's one of the Quantum Racing machines. That's John Barnes.
Just a touch on the wall. I think that's John Barnes still rubbing it, I'm afraid, in the 777 machine. That must have damaged his car a little bit. And rarely does it go well, having to squeeze 3 cars into that amount of space. This time around as well, I'm afraid it was a bit of the same situation. I'll see if we can recall the images of what we just saw there, Jack, and talk us through it.
Yeah, so you can see the number 87 of Kimber Haight on the bottom. Rob Lundgren, the car in the middle. He comes down low just to see whether he can get any sort of side draft. Kimber Haight goes up, and Rob Lundgren not really left with too much room. I think in his haste to avoid contact with Kimber Haight, knocked in towards the 777 up at the top of who was that? Of John Barnes, and then it was almost a domino effect from there. Bounced off John, which threw him back down towards the bottom of the circuit. So he then made contact with Kimber Haight. So you've got to think those 3 cars all with damage. Rob Lundgren with left and right side damage. The same with John Barnes. Of course, he got a knock on the inside from Rob Lundgren, and then a very big hit on the wall. Kimber Haight got away with that very luckily. Of course, running on the bottom gives you that extra breathing room if you need to use the apron, but everybody's still continuing without too much of an issue. But now we are going back towards 2 wide racing.
Yeah, indeed, and all of a sudden, after a few laps of, I'd call it stalemate at about 200 miles an hour, all of a sudden you just found it to kick off to quite a degree there, and it's caused a bit of calamity there for Robert Lundgren. It's certainly caused trouble for John Barnes as well, who's now all the way down at the 2nd pack. They'll just have to go right around. You can see just how much that aerodynamic damage to the machine of John Barnes is, well, it's really causing him troubles. And he's sailing back through the pack here. I think he'll be hoping that he'll be able to just tag along. And that might be a bridge too far for him. Mentioned the Flemish cars being split up. They've now found one another and are charging to the head of the field. James Hall there on the 68 E-Team Brit machine, 3rd at the moment, and have the 13 of Austin Gutorix. Tim Perry now in 5th position. And Michael Tyler's there, Anton Dupin, then Robert Lundgren and Adam Wright. And 9th at the moment, Adam Wright, the final driver to hang on to this front bunch. Have seen races in this series go from green to checkered with no cautions. Well, certainly that's not going to be the case for this race tonight. But we've had Max Spooner tells us has entered the pits, and I'm not quite sure. Oh, indeed he has.
Yep, so into the pit lane comes Max Spooner. A lockup just to make sure he gets it slowed down. Does indeed, but a little too far. Grabs reverse and then does eventually stop in his pit box. He's not going up on the jack, so I'm assuming that could either be for any sort of damage. I'm sure while his area will pick up a little bit of fuel, but of course with the Flemish Sim Sports cars up at the front, we saw it work. So here is Ian Roots still leading that second pack. And there is John Tusting following his teammate John Barnes. But of course now we saw the boosted cars up at the front helping each other along. And the Flemish Sim Sports cars have more or less swapped roles there, because it's Hendrik de Grave and Kim Verheyt up at the front. Then we get back to James Hall. Tim Perry, of course, with the absence of his teammate Rob Lundgren, he has now dropped down into 5th place, as you earlier alluded to, Hasse. Rob Lundgren sat there in 7th place. Adam Wright following along. And looking back from Anton Dupin now, you can see Rob Lundgren looking to work his way back up towards the front of affairs, still with that damage on his car. And you can see as soon as he jumps out of that slipstream, it really starts to throw him backwards. And I've just noticed James Hall, a slight bit of damage, I think, on that front left, but he is still up there with that lead Flemish duo.
He is indeed, and wondering, because right now the boosted machines are split by Anton Dupin, and that's of course one of the Flemish cars here, the number 14. Do you reckon it's gonna have any sort of effect that that they can't help one another in the same way the Flemish cars at the head of this pack can?
I think potentially Rob Lundgren could slowly start to push Anton Dupin closer and closer and closer to his teammate, so at that point it doesn't really become that much of an issue. You can see there, that was Austin Greatorex looking towards the outside. He didn't really make that much of a move, but he had a little look around the outside of James Hall. Nothing really came of it, so everybody's just nose to tail for the moment, biding their time. I think just waiting for something to happen, but you've just got to be so patient. And while the natural racer inside everybody out there is going to want to go, I want to go forward, I want to go forward, I want to get to the front of this pack, it's so easy just to fall foul of that and then make the mistake while you're working up towards the front of that pack. But if you just sit at the midpoint of that train, you're saving fuel, your tyres maybe will start to hurt. Of course, you're going to be in very hot, dirty air from the cars in front, but these NASCARs are built to withstand that, so you can just sit there, get comfortable, and then slowly work your way forward. Ian Roots, exhibit number 1, literally exhibit number 1 here. He's just sat with Seb Herbera behind. He'll be picking up the wisps of draft from Adam Wright in front, and all he needs to do is connect with that lead pack again, and then we're going to have 2 trains evolve into one slightly longer one, the 506. That's Damien Van Merciel for DVI Esports. That is now a lapped car from pretty much everybody, so picked up a little bit of draft there, and he has now just about been cleared by the lead 3 of the second pack. And there we go, we are slowly getting back to one slightly larger pack.
Indeed, and great teamwork there, great work in general by the Simracersworld Esports machines. No panic, just slowly, steadily bringing it back. They've managed to actually shake off John Barnes, who's being held at the moment, I think, by his teammate Jen Tusting in behind. Just trying to get to the next pit stop where he'll be able to get the damage fixed. Leland Phaetons there is in the 51 machine for QSR Racing Esports. And welcome on YouTube as well to everyone. We are with you in chat. Welcome to a lot of our regular NASCAR viewers. It's a great pleasure having you all along. Thanks for joining in, all the technical issues aside. To our wizard Chas Drake for stepping in and making things happen while the rest of the team is on the air. And with that, well, we are back to a state of normality, at least in terms of our output. Always great, which is really what we try to have as a well, it comes before anything else, doesn't it? On board with Anton Dupin, and you can clearly hear the lifting going off. He doesn't want to get any closer to the boosted car, basically, I think, because he doesn't want to help him along in fielding a charge that'll ultimately be against his own teammates here.
Yeah, there's no real point in working your way forward because, of course, if you are helping that car in front, it's going to domino towards your teammates up at the head of affairs, and the last thing you want is to hinder them in any way. So Anton Dupin, he's one of the pawns really on this chessboard because anything he does won't make that much of a difference. But if you look at the bigger picture, potentially it could slowly start to affect his teammates in a slightly negative way. So Anton Dupin, he's just got to bide his time, sit and get comfortable, and then potentially think about working forward. But heading on to lap 50 in a few moments' time, so almost a quarter of the way there already, Hasse. Barring any further issues, we could be on for one of the quickest races we've ever seen in regards to the Daytona 500. But, as expected, hopefully towards the latter stages of the race, but we got it done and out of the way fairly early on. We had a knock, we've had the safety truck out, and he's circulated a few laps, and hopefully that's his job done for the rest of the day. But in around about 30 minutes time, I'm guessing that's when we'll start to see the moves heading up through the field, and at this rate we're going to see some pit stops under green flag racing conditions, so even more pressure to make sure you nail your pit entry and nail your pit exit. And of course, while you are in the pit lane, make sure you don't take anything that is unnecessary. Fill the fuel and see what your tyres are doing. If you're under green flag, maybe just take the outsides to save a bit of time. If you're under yellow flag, you may as well take all four, but it all depends on how the drivers are reacting to the cars here. But Austin Greatorex cutting down very fine margin. He managed to split. There's the big contact, and just as I was talking about it, caution thrown straight away. Austin Greatorex on his roof over and over and over, and almost out of this race. There's yet more cars coming down, and great driving from that number 14 of Anton Dupin to get out of the way. I think Austin Greatorex slightly too eager to come down and got caught out a little bit there. There was the E-Team Brit car, the number 96. Who will that have been that got caught up in that? That would have been Michael Tyler as well. So 3 cars caught in the main incident. I'm sure more cars slightly further up the field, and we'll get a view here from Michael Tyler. Hasse, let's see what happened.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out where we get the best view of the original contact, but that is it. Anton Dupin, Austin Greatorex just about touching. That's all it takes. As Greatorex gets a big old flyer, and another caution period here around lap 50 to bunch the field back up together, Jack. It's certainly been what they've been waiting for a lot of the cars further down the order. And you spoke about it, like you jinxed it almost, a pit stop under green flags, which now we're not going to be getting, because I'd be very, very surprised if we don't see every single car in this field pitting in right about now.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. The current highest placed car to have pitted is Anton Dupin. He came straight into the pit lane after that incident. Hendrik de Graeve coming straight in. So too is Kimber Hay, Tim Perry, Ian Reeves, Seb Herber, Adam Wright, John Barnes, Milan Phaetons, John Tusting, Ivers Fredericks, Rob Lundgren, Kurt Van Hanaka. There is Anton Dupin, Matteo Sufi, Max Spooner and Damien Van Immersiel. And now we're seeing the little hit. Anton Dupin flying into the wall. And it's just that little bit of contact. He could have come out the throttle, but in hindsight, when you are travelling at north of 200 miles an hour, watching it back, it's so easy to say where it went wrong. But Anton Dupin, maybe a slight bit of tunnel vision, but thankfully, he can continue out and circulating. He has taken his one fast repair available, and it's James Hall in the lead, still yet to pit.
Well, he's done a few pit stops already, which might be the reason he doesn't feel the need to take one now. I'd be very surprised. He has taken a pit stop now. I know he did. Been at last one in at lap 18. James Hall tries to see him stay out here, but they're maybe trying to play the tactic of leaving one driver out. Cautions do sometimes indeed breed caution. We hope to get them spread out here for tonight, but not always the case. We're still lights on the truck up ahead. Of course, these cautions give us a chance to mention our sponsor for tonight's race as well, of course, DynamiXX Racing Simulators. That'll also show you a nice time building it. Paintball sim racing, of course, has an absolute specialty. And well, with something like that, what's not to love? Check out their website, of course, in the description. with that said, that's lights off on the pace truck there.
It is indeed. Flemish Sim Sports still leading the way. Seb Herber finds himself right the way up in 3rd place after that pit stop. Ian Roots finds himself in 5th. Tim Perry's still floating around in 4th place. So just shows if you can nail that strategy into and out of the pit lane, it can work for you. I'm expecting, of course, Hendrik de Grave leading the way at the moment. That is the number 87 machine. I'm trying to figure out which one's which at the moment. I think it's Hendrik on the bottom. It is indeed. So it's Hendrik de Grave on the bottom. I wouldn't be surprised if you see him just cross the line, lift off very slightly to allow Kimber Haight to work his way in front. And then, of course, it's both the SRW cars on the bottom, Seb Herber and Ian Roots. No doubt those two will be working together. It's all down to nailing this start. It's so tricky starting side by side with your teammate because one of you has got to concede that place. But it's so difficult to do that without letting everybody else through the door.
A very, very good point indeed. Certainly something that have to look out for. Of course, they have the advantage of radio communications and an in-team radio, which you can basically tell your teammate just when you're gonna press the loud pedal. That's just gonna give you a few tenths of an advantage down to the following cars. A good position to be in. Tim Perry there in 4th place. He's gonna do his best, getting right on it as well. And Seb Herber and the 211 cars certainly there out as well.
He is indeed. Paystruck peels his way off to the left-hand side into the pit lane, and there you go. You can see we are back under green flag conditions. It's Hendrik de Grave leading the way. Kimber Haight sat there in 2nd place, and there we go. Took straight back in. Tim Perry, great start. He finds himself sat in 3rd place. He does manage to cut down in front of the SRW pairing, so it's Seb Herber in 4th now. John Barnes in 5th. Ian Roots now in 6th. Then we get back to Rob Lundgren working his way back up through the field. We're still side by side in the background as well.
Quite surprised actually to see so much of the field side by side for so long. As you can see them, how they were just bleeding off time. It's cost them about half a second, and gaps are appearing already here. That's behind Kurt van Honacker, John Tusting, and that's the 64 of Matty Sufi, who's a lap car at the moment. By the way, Michael Tyler is ahead of the lap cars, or is the head of the lap cars, I'd probably say. And as such, he will be first in line to receive the Lucky Dog. And the Lucky Dog, of course, means that when we go on a caution period, the front lap car will be allowed to come around and rejoin the back of the field on the lead lap. That is certainly something that can save the day indeed here. James Hall into the pits. And that is ill-timed, to say the very least, having to come in right after the race having gone green here, Jack. A bit of a mystery to me.
Yeah, I think he's going to be the big loser out of this one, because the average pit entry to pit exit time is around about 45 to 50 seconds, and a lap time being around about 45 to 46 seconds. Of course, he was at the tail end of affairs when we went back green. He has managed to work his way back out on circuit, but of course he's got to take all this time to get up through that 6-speed sequential gearbox and make good his escape. But of course, Hendrik de Grave, he will have all that assistance from behind pushing him forward. I think that was Ian Roots in the background getting ushered towards the outside. It was indeed Rob Lundgren working his way up the inside. Can Ian Roots cut back down in front of the number 27? No, he can't. So Adam Wright works his way through now. Ian Roots just hoping for a doorway of air. There you go. He does manage to find himself a little bit of space right the way down in 8th place now. I think he lost 4, maybe 3 places in all of that, because he was pushing forward on John Barnes as well, trying to get back towards his teammate. Nothing really came of that, but very against the grain there. James Hall pitting under green when he's had the yellow flag opportunity to do so. Passing up on that, that's really put a dent in his race aspirations.
Absolutely so. A surprise here, just here, but a long way to go still. Anything can happen. I remember last season when we had our champion, indeed Sergio Hernandez, being lapped, receiving the Lucky Dog, and then still coming back to actually win the race at the end. That just goes to show just how unpredictable it is, and the 51 in the background has had an issue, I'm afraid. And Max Spooner involved as well. And I'd be very surprised. That's Milan Phaetons, and we are indeed under caution yet again here. So, Poor luck for Milan Phaetons there in the 51 machine. That has taken a very, very big knock. See just what happened here. So, and the two teammates, indeed, the two QSR cars. A little bit of an angle touch. So easy to get 1 o'clock, as you'd call it, you know, the 1 o'clock angle. That instantly puts your car off balance. That's the driver up ahead. Stopping it. Except for being very lucky indeed. Does come around to collect the safer barrier again. And, oh well. Big incident there. One of the Team Brit cars as well. I think that was indeed Max Spooner.
Yeah.
Also collected up.
Yeah, Max Spooner left with nowhere to go. You can see the initial hit, just enough to unsettle the car. Max Spooner kept his foot in. Probably not the best of things to do, but once again, when you're doing 200 miles an hour, it's very difficult to read what's happening, process it, and then act upon it. And Milan Phaetons so unlucky. And of course, for Max Spooner, left with nowhere to go. Great avoidance from James Hall, fresh from the pit lane. I'm sure those fresh tyres really did get used there. Hendrik de Graeve still leading the way behind the pace truck for what I think is now the third, maybe fourth time, correct me if I'm wrong, Hasse. We've still got Kimber Hay sat there in second place. Tim Perry for Boosted Motorsport. He's been up at the front. He's been towards the tail end of the front pack, but he is still back up into third place. Here we can see one of the SRW cars working his way around to get back onto the lead lap. I didn't quite pick up on who that was. I think that's Matteo Sufi in the number 64 Ford.
I think that could be correct, yeah. Around. First in line to... Okay. I believe he is indeed on the lead lap. Make his way around and he's charging here under yellow flags. To make it up in time, and he's still got another lap. Light's still on. It'll change once they come around the start-finish line here. We are entering the 59th lap of racing, so just over a quarter of the way into the race here, and certainly, I think a lot of the drivers at this point will be hoping for it to settle down ever so slightly, because stops and starts and getting the field bunched back up together sort of increases the risk of incidents that on a few occasions now. And fair play to everyone, because it really, as we've seen, well, it just takes such a tiny contact for the car to, well, basically come completely out of control. And that's something we see in live NASCAR racing as well, especially if, of course, any object traveling at these interfere with the path of the object, it's going to be changed. That's what we've seen.
Yeah, it is indeed. Pace truck in this lap. You can see lights have been extinguished. Once again, it's the Flemish SimSports cars up at the front, side by side, leading the way. 60 laps of racing will be completed at the end of this lap. Almost an hour of racing as well. So, taking into account all of the cautions we've had so far, it averages out to about a minute a lap. So, still with, what, 140 laps remaining. We're in for the long haul with this one, Hasse. Let's hope that, like you say, cautions don't breed any further cautions from here on out. Still got Tim Perry sat there in third place. Seb Herber jumping at the bit, trying to remain in the podium places. We've got John Barnes and Rob Lundgren. Ian Root still down in 8th place, looking to work his way back up to the front. But in a couple of corner time, we're going to be going back green again.
Very, very much so. Still following on the gearbox of Hendrik de Graeve. And the, well, what's it gonna be? The 4th restart of this race. I mentioned upon it before, but I'm talking about it again, the fact that it doesn't really matter whether you're in 1st or in 5th or 9th at this point of the race, as long as you're able to keep contact with the front bunch. Well, then pretty safe to be in with a shot once the race is going to reach the concluding stages. Now the pace truck has gone in, and the Flemish cars have gone for an early get-go here. Tim Perry's very much awake to it, and he's right on the tail. Look at the distance between the two. It's just your feet from one another. And there's something we see quite a lot, that often you could hardly even stick a piece of paper in between the two cars without it getting jammed. Something we used to see on the older NASCARs, of course, is the fact that if you're staying in the slipstream of a car head at these speeds for too long, you can actually have the engine overheating. Now, I'm not actually sure what's the deal with these newer next-gen machines, and whether cooling, at times at least, seems to be an issue for them as well. Here as Robbie Lundgren gets passed on Adam Wright, who then slots in ahead of Eve Fredericks. And John Tusting there, staying in contact, very much so, in the 999. Ian Roots, a little bit of space, but that just might be a strategy from Ian as well, Jack, to sort of make sure that he stays safe. You can see John Tusting, the moment he loses just the slightest bit of speed, the gap opens up. Ian's right there to close it up and to offer a helping hand for him to stay on point as well. Kurt van Honacker famously became a father in the middle of our last season of racing. At the Fast Daddy livery. Now the Mac Challenge E by DB Racing, and there's a bit of a contact there, sending someone into a slight bit of contact with the wall, and I wonder if that was the 51 machine. Well, it certainly wasn't, because Milan Phaetons is still in the pits.
Yeah, so at the moment, it's still slowly starting to fall back into where we'd expect everybody to just slowly almost chill out a little bit, get comfortable. There's the hit into the wall for one of the cars we've got out. I didn't quite pick up on who exactly it was. There is Jens Goosens, currently sat behind the number 96 of Michael Taylor. So let's see what happens. Coming now on towards the start-finish line, we'll see what happens. Does he just miss the turn in, or does he grab the apron? I think it happens in front of him.
We might be a little bit too far back. Meanwhile, Jack, he's been off track as well, Jens Husen. So, well, that's just Jens entering the pit lane and overshooting and getting onto the grass. And that might cost him a penalty, you know. It is indeed tricky bringing these machines down from full speed to almost a dead stop here now, as it's very much two trains running. And there's a high side move as Boosted has collected itself, so to say, with Robbie Lundgren there to help out with Tim Perry, Hendrik de Graaf and Kim Behate there on the inside line, and it's a team battle for the lead at the moment. Flemish on the inside, Boosted on the outside. And then Quantum, Simracersworld, and basically the rest of the bunch trying to get involved as well, and making a pretty good attempt at it at the moment. Look at that, the outside line there. Sepp Herber almost getting the squeeze in on Kim Behate, but finds himself left on the outside, and that's going to cost him the position, I think, because the Flemish cars are going to come in through. They are going to help one another, and they're going to seal the position. And there you see it, Jack, just how efficient it could be. Also, useful teammate for defensive purposes.
Yeah, it can be so useful, and we're still seeing it now. Just everybody slowly working their way around, making sure that they can continue on without any further issues. Still side by side in the background. A couple of the SRW cars in there, a couple of the E-Team Brit cars in there. I think we're 3 wide, almost pushing 4 wide now, going down the back straight. That's somebody on the very far outside. I think that's the 506. It is indeed. So the 506 being Damien van Immersil. James Hall manages to pick him off up the inside, so he's back towards the tail end of affairs, just about side by side again, slightly further up, but everybody's still continuing on without too much of an issue.
Keep it that way, please, shall we, for a bit? As the race. Well, I was about to say the race is settling down at this point, but it's very, very hard to say about something where the top 10 machines are separated by just about a tenth, or just about a second. I'm sorry. Hardly any of these cars in between separated by more than a tenth. So, of course, we'd be surprised to see the gaps appearing already there. The 27 on the high side, trying to get things done. Adam Wright on Anton Dupin. But Dupin with the slipstream, excuse me, of John Tusting's machine. He's not really able to get anything done, and that's what we've seen before as well. You kind of easily get hung out to dry there on the high line. It makes sense when you're coming onto the straights and if you got someone to follow, but once you're all there alone, look at Adam Wright just falling right down through the field here.
Yeah, he is indeed, and it's just so unlucky. You make one mistake, and if there's a train of cars along the bottom, the last thing you want to do is cut down and make an incident, so you've just got to be so patient. And here is Ian Roos, currently sat there in 10th place, just about holding on to the coattails of Anton Dupin. Just about on the tail end of that lead pack, so 2 packs formed to 1 once again. It's still Tim Perry now leading the way with Rob Lundgren sat behind. Then we get back to both the Flemish cars of Hendrik Grave and Kim Behay, and John Barnes, Seb Herbert, Ivers Fredericks, John Tusting, Anton Dupin, and then we get back to Ian Roos, the man we're looking at the moment. In hot pursuit is Kurt Van Hoenacker, with Matteo Sufi just sat behind, and Adam Wright, the last car on the lead lap. So everybody you're looking at the moment is on the lead lap. So coming into either the next caution or the next pit window, it's going to be a very busy pit lane.
Absolutely so, and we're going to see those tire changes, I think, also happening. For some, it might have been done already. And the drivers who've done a tire change are, of course, going to be sitting at a massive advantage should we have a pit stop where the majority of teams are having to get tire changes under green flag. Now, on these super speedways, not necessarily known for having excessive tire wear, simply because you're able to stay flat all the way through, and they just don't have the same kind of loads on tires that some of the shorter ovals, or especially the road courses, have. And that's something to mention as well, because there has been a, let's say, an expansion of the calendar for this series. Now, we're at Daytona for this 500-mile race, right? And on Monday, September 13th, we're going to Hopstead. Monday, September 20th, visiting Las Vegas. Then it's on to Phoenix, but then, from the month of October, we're going to Bristol for a short track there. It's going to be very interesting. Certainly going to be one to watch. Certainly it's going to be a lot of calamity in that race. Then we're going to Watkins Glen on Monday, October 11th for a road race here, and that's going to be great to see.
Yeah, it is indeed. I think that's where we'll start to see the different driving styles paying off. Tim Perry and Rob Lundgren very well glued together on the ovals, but when we do head to Watkins Glen, of course, you'll get all the assistance from that sequential gearbox, which will help you speed the car up and indeed slow the car down that you need. You need all that kind of performance at Watkins Glen. And then we'll also see the drivers that potentially prefer those road courses, so we could get a spanner thrown in the works in regards to the championship as well. Here is Michael Tyler, currently sat on the bottom, may potentially pick up another position here from, who will that be? I think that could be Damien Van Emmerseal. No, Damien's a little further back, can't quite pick up who that is on the outside. That's the number 27 machine of Adam Wright. Adam Wright at the top, Michael Taylor on the bottom. Matteo Sufi just sat behind as well, or just sat in front, pardon me. So we're seeing a couple of drivers swapping around and up towards the front again. It's still a one-way affair, but the Boosted Motorsport guys really working well together.
Absolutely so, and it's something they've tried before, these drivers, and they've been in it with the heavy hitters, the hard hitters of the last few seasons, now finding themselves at the very spicy end of affairs. And just surprised to see how Adam Wright's gone from being relatively far up the field to having lost a fair number of positions in quite a short amount of time, actually, here on lap 73, heading towards 74. And just for the sake of statistics, we've 4 caution periods so far. We won't be seeing any more of those. I'd be a little optimistic, knowing just how little it takes after commentating on 2 full seasons of this being the 3rd. Well, it's great to be back, but it's certainly also I find myself on the edge of the seat, sometimes just biting my nails. Sheer closeness, the vicinity of these cars to one another, they're so close, and the margins, as we've seen before, are absolutely tiny. And we mentioned upon the calendar not too long ago, Jack, and the fact that we've got road courses in the mix for this season. That's going to be very, very interesting as well. Just to round off the second part of the season, we're going to visit Talladega in Kansas. We're going to Darlington to Dover and the Texas Motor Speedway. And rounding off the season on Sunday, November 28th, is the Charlotte 400, which is going to be a race, I think, fairly akin to this one. Charlotte is a slightly shorter track, but certainly one that demands a lot of the drivers. Indeed, we've had Jens Huchens in the pits, I'm afraid. You have to wonder just what the issue has been for him, and I think he is not on track for the time being.
Still gone. Carry on, Hasse.
Oh, I was just about to say our pole sitter here in the 777 machine, who's found himself scraping the walls on a few occasions. He's very much still in contention, probably having spent his fast repair already. But having a car that's still able to do what it has to do, and I think for that, we're happy. Check a bit. I haven't seen much of these next-gen cars yet. Which one of these, in terms of purely in terms of design, would be your favorite?
I mean, if you're going to think, for me, I think I base a lot of my preferences on heritage, and of course Ford and Chevrolet have been in the sport for many years, pretty much since its birth. But I've got to say, it seems to be something I do unknowingly, but I own pretty much one of every single class: the Xfinity cars, the Cup cars, the Next-Gen cars, and the Gander outdoor pickup trucks, all of which I've got the Toyotas. So I'm not sure why that is the case, but I've got to say, it seems like the Toyota isn't necessarily the preferred car. Flemish Sim Sport's the only team out with the Toyota. You see a little bit of a wobble behind from John Barnes, evidently pushing the limits of that car in the dirty air. But I've got to say, for me, the Toyota is the one I tend to drive the most. In regards to pure looks, I'm a massive fan of the Chevrolet.
So, they all look great. They all have that real muscly NASCAR feel to them, even with the expanded aerodynamics and such. A lot of, call them oval purists, if such a thing even exists, have been thinking that these cars are maybe an evolutionary step too much, maybe at once you could say, while other parts of the oval fan community have been thrilled about the idea of cars having a little bit more potential, a little bit quicker. In terms of design, in terms of pure looks, I gotta say the Ford for me really picks the bunch, and it's a great looking car. At the head of affairs here, still Tim Perry, still ahead of Robbie Lundgren, still ahead of both of the Flemish cars. Saying both of the Flemish cars, there are actually 3 of them, and 2 of them, 3rd and 4th at the moment. Then John Barnes, and then Sepp Herber in the 14 car. Oh, my apologies, Sepp Herber in the 211 ahead of Anton Dupin in the 14 car, so getting a little ahead of myself there. There are more cars in between. Anton Dupin currently 7th, still very much though in this front pack. Still maybe the driver to make the difference once we get a little closer to the end of it. So, on lap 80, it's boosted 1-2, Flemish 3-4, then Quantum, and it's the Simracersworld Esports A team. Another Flemish car. Eve Fredericks is just about hanging on in 8th place, and then from there on it's quite a massive gap actually. Look at this, still too wide, and still really battling for positions down here, and I think that'll be the answer as to why they've lost this time as well. Because they are a little too busy squabbling with one another here, Jack. And it's something they have to be mindful of, not to get left behind.
Yeah, it's one of them things. And it turned out I was talking to myself there. I'd ended up muting my mic somehow. Can't quite figure out how. But I've got to say, as much as I love seeing these cars race nose to tail and side by side and a little bit of trading paint here and there, I cannot get away from the fact I think this race is going to be settled on strategy, because you can go in and think, all I'm going to do is pit under yellow. What if there isn't another yellow? You can practice all the pit stops you like. Ian Root's now falling back again. He's now had to drop in behind the Quantum Racing entrance of John Tusting. So it's all well and good practicing these yellow pit stops, but what if you've got to pit under green? Make sure you nail the braking points for both. You change down the correct amount of gears. You stop in your pit box. That's done so many times, just slightly out braking yourself, snagging a brake in towards your pit box, and you end up in the cars in front. So you've got to be so careful into, out of, and the bit in between of the pit lane. Make sure you don't overfuel, underfuel, do or don't take the tyres that you're required. Of course, you're only allowed 4 sets, so it's so down to this strategy and how easily you can get it nailed, but also how easily you can get one over. Not necessarily just on your competitors, but sometimes on your teammate. If you need to swap round, make sure you can do it in the strategy. If you do it on the road, you leave yourself vulnerable to all the other cars around you.
That is wise words. Wise words indeed. Jack Werrell. Maddie Sufi on the 64 machine. Only 2 cars still running, not on the lead lap, but I can see Damien van Immerzeel and Jens Hoef as well. Makes 1 because Hoef is actually in the pits. And as such, we've actually had quite an atrocious race so far, I'm afraid. And at this race, I think they're gonna have to be careful. A lot of the drivers realize that as well. It's you know, to finish first you have to finish, saying, but it's well, make it less true in the end. And with the kind of chaos, the kind of incidents you can run into in these sort of races, Jack, what would you say is the safest place to kind of keep yourself?
It's one of those things. It's all down to confidence. It's just where you place the car, who you've got around you. It's that confidence and that trust that will slowly start to build throughout the season. You'll know who you can stick around, who you can race closely with, and then who you've got to give maybe that extra cars with. And I think around Daytona, with it being so flat out, it's fairly easy to gauge what the cars are doing around you. And for me, I love the low line, not just because for me it's slightly quicker, but because if anything goes on around you, you've got all that apron to use. Whereas if you're running that high line, all you've got is cars and wall. There's very little wiggle room there. If you pull out of the throttle, you're only going to go backwards. If you keep your foot planted, there's a chance you could slowly start to run high, and then you've got the wall. So I really find it safe being in the mid-pack down on the apron, because if something happens, you've got a bit of defense around you. There's other cars that can get picked up, but you've got all that apron that you may need to use, and it's so easy just getting into the pit lane from there as well. So I think the low line for a lot of drivers is definitely the preferred one.
That's also what we're seeing as they're racing on. I don't really see anyone going for the high line when they're alone, unless they're trying to pick up the pace for a qualifying lap or something like this. And you can indeed, when you're alone, run a little bit quicker and pick up more speed on the high line, as of course a question of physics basically, and the fact that you have a corner with a longer radius. Able to speed, and that's good if you're going for a hot lap, of course. Not so much if you're trying to defend position here. Adam right on the tail of Kurt van Honacker. Look at these two, very, very close indeed. This is the second bunch, if you will, and it's made up of cars that are on the lead lap, a few cars that are on the lead lap as well. And the bunch here will certainly be hoping that they could get back into the fold at some point. Are approaching 100 lap of racing. Not quite there yet. About 10 minutes or so of green flag racing for us to get there.
And we'll be indeed only 3 laps and we hit that lap 90 mark, of which I'm having a few connection issues on my end, so I will leave you in the capable hands of Chaz Drake. He is the super sub for this one, so I am sorry everybody for the slight inconsistencies, but I'm sure they will very quickly iron out. Of course, Chaz being very familiar with the real life and the virtual commentary box as well. Still riding on board now with John Barnes from Quantum Racing, the 777 machine, sat behind Kimber Haight for Flemish Sim Sports. Then we get to the second of the Flemish Sim Sport cars with Hendrik de Grave, and then it's both the boosted cars, Tim Perry and Rob Lundgren, up at the top. The number 83 of Tim Perry has been leading the way for quite some time now, more than happy punching that hole in the air for his teammate. You can hear John Barnes lifting out now, just modulating that throttle, allowing for a little bit of speed reduction just to make sure he doesn't get too close. And we're slowly starting to see bigger and bigger gaps form between the cars, not necessarily because one can't keep up with the other, just to stay safe and stay comfortable in your car, because lap 88, we're not even halfway there yet, so there's no point taking any unnecessary risks. So if you can sit there, still reap all the benefits from the draft assistance, save a bit of fuel, it gives your car a little bit more fresh air into the radiators to allow the car to cool down, but it also means you're not compromising anybody around you. So I think this is the perfect stage in the race where everybody's just settling in and allowing the race more or less to do its thing.
Very much so, and I think the drivers have been wanting for this to happen as well, and we've been speaking about it, for the race to just settle down, and for the drivers to, I was about to say relax. I don't think they're really going to be able to relax much here, to be honest, with the amount of concentration, that's required of them. Keep everything pointing in the right direction. These speeds, margins they're running at, but you see drivers ever so slightly out of line just to cool the cars, just to keep temperatures in order as we're coming on to lap 90. I'm going to be joined shortly by Chaz Drake, indeed. The prize, but a good one. Nevertheless, thank you so much for joining me, Jack, and came about your connection issue. Hope they will for the next one. And with that, I think we have Chaz on board.
You do indeed, mate. How are we this afternoon? Or evening, I should say.
It's getting into evening time by now, at least for my sake. For you, maybe not quite yet. I think the official turning point there would be 6 o'clock. Time zones, you know. But all that aside, I am grand. Thanks for joining in. And that sure is, Chaz.
Yeah, it has indeed, mate. You are very most welcome. And what a race we've got at the moment. These two groups, of course, very intriguing indeed. Drivers just doing their own thing. We've got a number of them joining back out onto the circuit right now. And it's quite focused in. Oh, well, I'll say that. Hendrik de Grave has missed his box. And the other Toyota just in front of him there, which is Kimber Haight, just missing his box too. So, to be honest, it's very easy to do. But I'm afraid it's all too often that you do see it. The two teammates having a bit of a nightmare there. Back out on track they go. Flemish Sim Sports machines, as well as a trio of them. Nearly a bit of inter-team argy-bargy as the leaders come onto pit lane now.
Yeah, indeed. Let's see if that extra lap makes any real difference in the race. Oh, John Barnes in the 777 and the two boosted cars almost touching. And a little bit too much drama on pit entry. Here's the first time we see a green flag pit stop. And the implications of such, well, can be quite big indeed. Our pole sitter, John Barnes, I'm afraid he overshoots the booth. Or does he? No? Well,
it looked like he did, didn't it?
Yeah, it certainly did.
It certainly looked like he went absolutely steaming in there on the brakes. But no, apparently not.
I'm going to be quite intrigued as to whether Tim Perry is going to be able to lead this one coming back here. Robbie Lundgren still in the pits. And let's see where the Flemish cars are. They've found Anton de Parra is now merged into a trio of machines, but they are down on the boosted cars. And now for the first time, Chaz, we have some actual splits happening with the green flag pit stops and all that comes with it here.
Yeah, we do. It's been a bit of a scrappy afternoon in some respects, but still, it's so tough to get every single lap right here at the Daytona International Speedway. And a lot of the drivers doing a very strong job indeed. It is pretty much now one 12-wheeled Flemish sim sports car, which is making its way around the circuit. And there it is, the beautiful machines at Flemish. You and I have always been a fan of them since we started commentating on the virtual Belcar E-Series as well. And now they look and sound absolutely awesome. Just wanted to quickly mention as well the next-gen machinery that we have here on iRacing that I'm sure you've spoken about over the course of the race. A lot more downforce in these cars. I've been told they drive like a GT3 car without the wings and a hell of a lot more power.
That certainly sounds interesting, and it's going to be all the more interesting when we get to Watkins Glen for the road course here. The first road course and the first road race in general of the SRW NASCAR Series as a whole. It's going to be an entirely new challenge for all drivers involved, basically. And something that's also just going to require so much more for a potential coming champion.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing just to note quickly here is obviously Slipstream is the aim of the game at Daytona. I'm just looking at Tim Perry's speed, which we get live on the SDK overlay here on our timing screen. He was maxing out at 295 kilometers an hour, and those that are all in the Slipstream trying to chase him down are doing 315, and you can see the difference now. Look at this from the Flemish cars trying to go around. Kimber Haight for now goes into the race lead with Hendrik de Graeve going through. Anton Dupan's going to go through as well, and that 12-wheeled Flemish car absolutely on a mission. Now the Toyota's working gorgeously together. If gorgeously is a word, I suppose. But it's one of those circuits really where it sounds easier than it is. You know, just keep your foot flat and turn left. But honestly, with the amount of laps you can do around an oval, your left arm can be absolutely killing come the end of it.
That's one aspect of it, but the precision needed as well. As you say, it is easier to make the mistake of thinking that, oh, it's just the same corner 200 times or 400 times even in the sake of Daytona. And we've seen this over the course of this race as well. Just if you just dip a wheel or two down onto the apron there mid-corner, it's going to unsettle the car. And all of a sudden, you have all sorts of things happening. I think with these next-gen machines as well, and the added aerodynamics, it also means that, especially with the underbody aerodynamics that's going on, all of a sudden, if the car sort of loses that suction to the ground, and the ground effect that it's having with the diffuser and everything, it's going to be a whole different kettle of fish if you lose that downforce suddenly. And we've seen it on a few occasions as well, that they do tend to get a little bit wobbly once air comes down underneath the cars, and that's really a thing to avoid here.
Yeah, it is indeed. We've got two boosted cars together here, but you have to remember that Rob Lundgren is a lap down on these guys. I've commentated on Rob Lundgren a lot in all sorts of cars and machinery, from TCR cars to the Volkswagen Jettas on iRacing as well. He's taken place in my British Boring Car Championship and in the Chaslington Touring Car Championship, where he drove a Subaru Rallycross car around road courses, which was incredibly entertaining. Rob is a very, very flamboyant and very quick Swedish driver, but he is a lap down on these guys at the moment, and you can see that he's not getting too involved. He's just happy to be dragged around by the slipstream and keep the pace up as this goes on. He's got his teammate right in front of him, Tim Perry, in the very garish camouflage in that number 83 car. He was doing a fine job earlier, led for a long, long time, but now the Flemish guys up front, they've got strength in numbers here, even over the two boosted cars right behind. It's a shame that the pit stops have split it up so much, Hasse, but this is just sort of what happens with it, really, isn't it? You do get that in pit stop included racing.
Yeah, you do, and especially in oval racing, once you get those green flag pit stops, it sort of tends to a spanner in the works of everyone. Such a different things, and often because you tend to have so many caution periods, because a lot of cars and a lot of space, and speeds are quite great indeed. So naturally, incidents occur. The caution flag comes out, and you tend to have some drivers maybe not putting that much practice into green flag pit stops, because it doesn't happen that often. When it then does happen, you find that it actually make a huge difference just how you get that pit stop over with.
Yeah, the stopping of these cars isn't great, and the getting going of these cars isn't great, so you really have to master the art and learn how to carry momentum. Now, interestingly, Rob Lundgren has got Seb Heberer right behind him. That's for position. These two are 12th and 13th in the race overall at the moment, and they are on the same lap as one another. So while Rob doesn't want to move forward ahead of these guys in front of him and start interfering, he might have to start battling with Heberer here, and they don't want to lose this all-important slipstream, because any other drivers around them, they've got Kurt Van Hoenacker a while away in front of them, 22 seconds in front. They could catch him up if these leaders keep up a good pace and work together. So they need to not fight amongst themselves, but tell Sebastian Heberer that. He's going to want track position, or is he going to realise that the slipstream's just as good as well? We're nearly at the halfway point, though, Hasse, and to be honest, from when we were starting the broadcast earlier and I was trying to help diagnose the YouTube issue, it seems like it was only 5 minutes ago, to be honest.
Yeah, indeed, it does go quickly, and you think 200 laps of this, it's going to take forever, but there's actually quite a lot to look at. And once you get into the universe that is, there's also plenty of things to talk about, so many details to notice, and so much strategy as well. As you can see, the Flemish cars, having played this out perfectly, really able to take advantage, and the boosted cars not in exactly the same way. Little surprised maybe to see how Robert Lundgren took that tire stop earlier. Not quite sure how much he's going to be able to read from it, except for the fact that if he can tag on to this bunch now, and then when the rest of them have, he could actually maybe even be looking at coming out ahead.
Yeah, that's it. While it is split up for the moment, these guys have to manage their own races dependent on what level they're at the moment. You know, everyone has an idea of a strategy, everyone has an idea of where they want to be at the end of this race, but so long as you manage your own race and don't worry too much about others early on, and in the first, I'd say 3/4 of a race like this, you should be in a good position to calculate what you need to do at the end. As you'll have seen, of course, Rob Lundgren's pit stop over a minute, Sebastian Heberer's pit stop was about 51 seconds. Everybody else was around 12 to 13 seconds. There was one that was Damien Van Immersiel, which was 15 seconds. But everybody else in the 12s and 13s, although Anton Dupin, 10.5 seconds. An incredibly fast pit stop from the man in third place at the moment in the 14 car. Rob Lundgren looking a little bit more urgent now behind Tim Perry, but to be honest, that's not because Heberer is putting him under attack. He's not really having to defend or do anything at the moment, but he's starting to get closer and closer to his teammate, maybe just giving him a push to say, go on Tim, crack on with it, mate.
I think so as well, but Heberer is also an experienced driver, and he'd know that there's not really a massive point in getting all that involved with the battle here. The fruits to be reaped is just being sown right about now, and it'll take a bit of growing, it'll take a bit of catching up to the cars ahead, and they are in prime position to do so on the back of the leaders back here. You know they are indeed, both Heberer and Robert Lundgren up ahead, indeed a lap down. Up onto lap 103 of the 200 to go. We've been racing for an hour and a half, and as such, it won't be long before we leave you for a very, very short break indeed. I go fill my water bottle and allow myself to to speak some more. There's a lot of talking going on, and sometimes, actually, this is one thing, I've been watching more and more real NASCAR after getting involved with this series, because it's been catching my interest, and now, well, I actually feel like I understand it to some degree. Does that make me a American redneck? Perhaps, but it's fun. It's fun indeed. But one thing I have to say is the commentators, the live commentators on American TV, they do quite the job of keeping quite the level of intensity for quite a long time, actually, as well. So even though it might not always seem the case, well, kudos to them. Imagine David Crofty having to go on for 3-4 hours at his level of intensity. There'd be nothing left of him at the end.
No, there certainly wouldn't. But you are right. Some very, very talented commentators in the NASCAR world. And to be fair, in just the oval racing world in general, I often say, you know, in no offence to any commentators that we have here on iRacing or in the real world, I don't usually enjoy American-style commentary. It just doesn't agree with the way that I do my commentary. You know, as commentators, we all have our own styles and our own way of doing things. I've never enjoyed American commentary, but there's one particular commentator called Evan Pasoko that does a lot of iRacing commentary for NASCAR, and he even commentates Monster Jam in real life, which is an amazing gig. But Evan is an absolute superhero in my eyes. He's fantastic in the box. But you're right, they do keep a great level of entertainment all the way through a race like this, and I do not really know how they do it. As we see right now, John Barnes getting very stuck in with John Tusting, the two teammates at Quantum Racing. I've commentated on John Tusting in the Simracersworld Formula 3 Championship, which will be returning next week. And at the moment, these guys trying to make it work around the outside. We've got E-Team Brit getting involved as well. The team has got more involved in iRacing over the last 12 months. I've raced against a number of them over on R-Factor in a championship called the VMOTC UK. Michael Tyler here, 14th place at the moment, looking back at his teammate James Hall having a fight with a few other guys as well. Actually, to be fair, that's not a fight for position, is it, those guys? Tusting and Barnes are a lap ahead.
Yeah, indeed, it's James Hall who's been involved in an incident or two already this race. I think just trying to hold his own here, but he's got
Barnes on the outside, isn't it?
It's Barnes who, from being on pole position, and I know I've mentioned this on a fair few occasions before, because in road racing, pole position can be so, you know, all important. Grab pole on a track where it's hard to overtake, and you're in a pretty good position to carry through, at least in a sprint race. However, in NASCAR, it is rarely the guy in pole position that wins. Exactly, it means absolutely nothing. I was about to use a profane word to describe that. Stop myself on the tracks there and a head on the shoulder. But it doesn't mean a whole lot. And and it's the bigger the packs are, the more it's basically just the question of being in there once you get to the final 20 laps or so, and then start taking it from there as well. And always heat us up once we get into that final half an hour of racing, maybe just 20 minutes, and sometimes even less. But all of a sudden it really starts to kick off, and going from what we see here, which is often a quite patient approach to things and no real urgency about moving from positions, all of a sudden the urgency very much gets in there, and the complexity of the racing really changes.
Yeah, it does. You're right. You know, I often say that, I mean, I mentioned it before, that the 3 quarters of this race don't really mean much, but you've just got to survive and get yourself lined up and in a position with your strategy and your track position to be able to make something of the final quarter of the race. It is so important. They are an endurance race, and it's an endurance race that is so different to the sort of racing we see over here in Europe and a lot of the time in international competition as well. Obviously, the endurance titled championships, like the World Endurance Championship, ELMS, loads of other things, they're on road courses, but there's a lot of driver changes and obviously a lot of pit stops like you do get in NASCAR, but it's just a completely different dynamic. These guys are doing what is on paper a very simple circuit for hours on end, but at the same time, you mentioned it before, Hasse, they've got this unbelievable precision that they have to carry out lap after lap in carrying the speed. You know, the speed is more important than the lap times really in this, to be honest, because it's all about the track position rather than where you're going to be when you come out of the pits, because with the slipstreaming effect and everything that these cars carry with them, you can catch up to one another and then lose each other if you drop out that slipstream very quickly. But we have a great shot here from Tim Perry and the Flemish Simsport trio leading this race at the moment. They haven't changed position for a long time, and they're just doing everything they need to do. But you can see right now, Tim Perry, he's lifting. He's not trying to go past these guys. He's just following them for this stint, keeping it nice and simple, and he wants to set himself up for a good position later on.
Yeah, exactly. He'll be, and that's the patience needed to really do well in NASCAR. We've seen the best of drivers in the series do it time and time again. Just keep safe, keep steady within the chaos, which is, well, it's easier said than done, that's for sure. Yeah. I heard a driver compare it to being in a dry tumbler that's moving at 200 miles an hour. Sort of when you get that rotational effect in the bunch, and you have to, the outside line is moving up, and all of a sudden you went from first place to 7th place in a lap or two. And then all of a sudden it settles down, and the best of drivers are just basically waiting for this to happen so they can get down with the real part of the race, which is where they can really get to make the difference. As long as it's a big bunch and everybody's right there in together, it's hardly even possible to break the gap open. What we saw on a few of the restarts here today was that some of those drivers that kind of insisted on keep on pedaling too wide, keeping it too... Oh, and almost a bit of contact there. And I have to wonder... They keep it too wide up ahead. And
that's the Team Brit back marker there in the 506 of Damien Van Immerziel. And I'm not quite sure how they all got caught out by that there, but maybe the Team Brit car... Oh, just not moving out of the way. I think Van Immerziel thought that he was fine to carry on as he was. Holding up his countryman there in Flemish Sim Sports. Scary, scary moment there, trying to get past. It's not James Hall, is it? Which one of the Team Brit cars is that? Is that Michael Tyler? Still holding the leaders up now as well. They won't be pleased with that one. I'm sure if they had actual headlights on them. Oh, it's not Michael Tyler. Apologies, Michael. It's not James Hall either. It's another car with orange numbers.
It's Max Spooner.
Max Spooner. And he's still not out of the way. He's just making them go around him at the moment. Not quite sure what the deal is there with Max Spooner, but he's just holding his inside line. And the guys weaving in front of him sort of showing him their dismay with that, which I'm pretty sure a lot of us would do. But it's certainly spiced up the battle near the front for a lot of those guys. Not in the way that some of them would have wanted, though. So now... we've got Anton Dupin in 4th position behind Tim Perry. Tim stayed on the inside line, importantly. Anton got to the right to try and avoid any issues. And now he's dropped behind him, so they don't have that deadlock at the front. But still, I don't think Tim Perry's going to push forward here to try and take the lead, do you?
No, I'd be very surprised, because he's up against it with 3 Flemish cars who can then gang up on him and make his life hard. I think it's he's in a better position just hanging out behind him. Got Robert Lundgren, though, who can help him a bit. And Robert Lundgren, I think, was both in that situation before, because he just managed to slip on when Anton Dupin had to lift because of the back marker they came through on, and just stayed close to his teammate. That's what in cycling terms would be called a domestique. The Gregorio in Italian, the helper. The Robin to the Batman.
Yeah, the Robin to the Batman, I like that. To be fair, though, written on the back of Tim Perry's car is "Who dares wins," and it is very, very true indeed. But I think in this situation, it is "Who waits for near completion of the race before making a move wins." But it doesn't sound quite as good. But Kim Bay still leading the way at the moment from his teammate Hendrik de Grave. With the static shot there as Kim has a little flash in and out for a second. I've seen a few of the drivers over the course of the race doing that. We still have that second train going on, though. Adam Wright leading Matthew Sufi, Ian Roots, Eve Fredericks, John Barnes, and all this rabble going on. It's good to see the boss man back out there on track, though, Ian Roots. And there is John Barnes, actually, and John Tusting. Those two quite a bit further back, but this still for position between the two Johns, the two teammates at Quantum Racing. But there's that big train then. There is said boss man, Mr. Roots. He's got Matthew Sufi in front of him from the Simracersworld Esports Team A. Ian is part of Team B. The boss man actually sort of delegating himself to be in the lower of the two teams, but they have a great thing going on at the Simracersworld Esports team. You know, everyone has a really good time of everything that they do. They make sure that enjoyment is the aim of the game, really, when they're all racing. You can see Ian gets a bit close, doesn't take the higher line all the way around Matthew Sufi there. He just sort of gives it a bit of a wash out wide to make sure that he doesn't get too close to him. Now, two cars ahead is BSTV Esports. That is Adam Wright. I'm pretty sure that this is the same Adam Wright that races in my European Touring Car Championship. He took a win at Hockenheim recently. because he runs number 27 as well. And I think that's Backfire SimSport TV esports that he is racing for. Backfire SimSport's run by at least I know it's run by Clyde Whiting, a good friend of mine. And Adam is very quick indeed. He's holding off Matthew Sufi at the moment, but you've got to think, again, similar to the situation we saw up front, could Matthew just be holding on behind him with no effort to go in front at the moment because he doesn't see much of a point in it? These guys need to work together to close on that front gaggle. They are gradually closing in on them by the look of it, actually, because the time to Anton Dupin is just ticking down ever so slowly. 16.1 seconds now. And it still comes down because they're not overtaking each other at the front. These guys aren't really doing any overtaking either, but now it's less than 16 seconds, so we should keep an eye on that one, actually, Hasse.
Absolutely so. And they'll be hoping for the squabbling up ahead, for them to come back on, or a caution period. Of course, I think we're sitting here hoping for flag to remain.
It's come down by a second in the time we've been talking about it.
That's rather rapid. So
yeah.
a little bit
It's about a
surprised
second
to
a lap.
see that. Yeah, indeed. I'm wondering if it's the amount of cars that are bump drafting one another might just change the top speed ever so slightly. I'm not quite sure about it, but we'll have to see.
I'll have a
but
look
it has
now.
crept down to 15 seconds. That's true. It was 16 and a half not too long ago. So not only is it creeping down, but it's doing so relatively quickly. If these
14.8.
if these drivers find themselves back in it, could be getting very, very interesting all of a sudden. And what a comeback it would be for any of these drivers, basically, to come back from being these 14, 15 seconds down and actually catching up. It is no mean feat.
I'm just looking at the top speeds now. I'll wait until that lead trio. They're on the back straight already, actually. Now, Kimber Haight is topping out at 311 miles an hour. Sorry, wow, that would be fast, wouldn't it? 311 Ks down there. And with the slipstream, I mean, well, Adam Wright's hitting 3:14, 15, 16 before he turns into the final corner. So they've got a few kilometers an hour over these guys every single time they go down the straight, and the gap is now down to 14.2 seconds. So I don't think it'll be too long before they're actually with them, you know, Hasse.
Oh, I had myself muted because I needed to type. My apologies, but yes, indeed. and at this pace, I'm actually surprised to see it even, well, this much of a difference. But looking at this, Kimber Haight really getting all that much from his teammate here. And I would expect more bump drafting between the Flemish cars, but of course there could be reasons they're not doing it. But right now, I'm just seem to be holding steady. See those small swerves the cars take once in a while, just leaving the line, leaving the pace line, if you will, to get some fresh air, some cool air into the radiators. Of course, it's been an issue that I think was worse with the older NASCARs, but apparently seems to be things still, that they make sure to get some clean, cool air to those radiators to make sure that the car doesn't overheat. Of course, a bigger problem on the super speedways such as Daytona, where, well, basically you could find yourself for better part of half an hour between pit stops, between stints, or, well, for a stint between pit stops to say the right thing and not fill you with gibber. But my point being that you could spend all that time basically just flat out the whole way through. And that's the kind of stress on, well, mostly on the engine, but also on that sixth gear that runs for so long. Now it is sixth gear with these sequential Next-Gen Cup cars. That's a gear that takes a lot of beating. That's an engine and a general system of the car that takes a whole lot of beating. And that drivers talk about it at Le Mans as well, especially with the old Le Mans, before they added the chicanes, that they wore down the top gear of the car because they simply spent so long in it. And I think for these cars, I don't know what they make the gearboxes of, but they certainly have to take long.
Yeah, it's definitely not cracker bread, is it? To be honest, though, it's sort of... Now, I'm not like a die-hard NASCAR fan, but, you know, to see the cars not go from 4th to 5th gears... sorry, 4 to 5 gears, but see them go up from 4 to 6 gears and then take away the fact that it's H-pattern. These cars have technologically advanced massively with this upgrade. You know, they've got the huge splitters on them now, which helps the underfloor aero massively. They're a lot less difficult to handle from what I've heard. They've got sequential gearboxes. They're not H-pattern anymore. There's more gears. It sounds to me a lot like they're making the cars easier to drive. It's almost like a very late delayed reaction to what Formula 1 have done. If you know, try and get somebody to drive a mid-1980s Formula 1 car now, you know, they've got over 1,000 horsepower. They're pretty much H-pattern boxes in most of them. You have to use a clutch and all sorts. You know, now the car does a lot of it for you. And that's sort of what this is to me with these cars. They're fantastic to look at. I think they're amazing bits of kit, but I feel it's taken away a few of the sort of old school things that these drivers had to think about. But either way, we still get fantastic racing from them, and that's all we want to ask for, really, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. And I think from any motorsports purist perspective, it was great to have something that still used an H-pattern box, basically, and that was still a very old school sort of car. Whereas now, it seems that even NASCAR is picking up on modern technology, modern day technology, at least to say the least, and especially modern day aerodynamics. This is the first NASCAR to ever really feature any kind of underbody aerodynamics, which of course is going to make a huge difference. It's sort of also into the same territory that Formula 1 is going to be going now for next season with the 2022 rule set that was supposed to come in. Oh, and I'm just going to cut myself off. We have the next round of pit stops happening here. And that means potentially the complexity of this race could change on its head here, Chaz.
I think the number 87 machine of Hendrik de Graeve had an issue on the way into the pits there because there was a humongous plume of smoke. Anton Dupin had to dive out to the left. And Hendrik lost all the ground. Anton's missed his box. Oh, Anton's lost time. He gained a lot of time in the pit stops earlier, but now he's missed his box here. Now, Anton was already over to the left. Oh, it was Anton, and it was actually the 86 that had the huge plume of smoke out of it. Kim Behate, so a little lock-up from Kim there, but nothing too untoward, and they managed to get their pit stops sorted. And then we should be seeing extra stops from other cars around them very, very soon. Tim Perry, of course, the most important one to see. Anton Dupin on his way back out now. So you'll see what he can manage out on circuit. Now, did he take fresh rubber? Because that didn't seem like a long pit stop at all. He didn't. 12.5 seconds the stop for Anton Dupin.
Well, and at least with the older machines, tire wear did not used to be a big issue here on the super speedways. I would expect that with the added downforce of these new machines, that it's basically going to be even less of a problem. And as such, you might actually be able to do the entirety of this race on a single set of tires. Here, John Tusting takes...
He's going to get done for that.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. Takes out the pit lane cone.
Now, Kim Behate's been in the pit lane for a very long time, Hasse. I believe either he's taken tyres or he's had a speeding penalty because he's pretty much had his usual pit stop time plus 40 seconds. Which I'm not sure whether that's coincidence or not, because that's usually how long you get done for and told to wait in the pits when you've sped on the way in. And let's not forget that he had a humongous lockup. Or he's taken fresh rubber, but he's made a very quick stop of it. I think it's the former.
I'm afraid it is, and that is going to be a big, big problem for Kim Behate. It's going to basically put him into the claws of Robert Lundgren. Could be what happened to Robert Lundgren there as well, because he did have a relatively long pit stop on his last one, or the previous one, very much within the same sort of time frame that Kim Behate has been putting still for this time around. And Robert Lundgren still on the tail of Tim Perry, who now leads everybody by a lap, basically. Of course, mind you, these drivers still have a pit stop to do, But the longer he can stay out there, the longer he can run for, I think that's going to be an advantage for him in the end.
Yeah, potentially. It depends on what the Flemish guys can do, because if they start slipstreaming each other and improving their top speeds at the end of the straights and shortening down their lap times by even just 1/10 of a second each time round, then they could jump him, although Perry does go into the pits now. Perry dives in with his teammate Rob Lundgren as well. So Rob is getting himself back into the rhythm of pit stops with everyone else. There is John Tusting on his way out too. And looks to me like what could have been a very, very quick pit window has already been sorted, albeit just waiting for these guys to come back out.
We're expecting no tires yet again for Tim Perry on lap 131. 200 to do, which means that under flag running, just under an hour away. Final bits and butts of this race, of course. That is only the case that we'll have green flag running until we see the checkered. Now, you mentioned before, Chas, that can the Flemish cars find one another again? Well, they've managed to, but they're also doing sort of what Boosted has been doing as well with their two cars, because Hendrik de Graaf is now a lap ahead of Kim Behade. And teammate along to help, trying to push them along, but I think we haven't seen the final twist and turn of this race.
No, it can all change very, very quickly between these guys. And all it takes is a little move here and there. Oh, that's the 27 and the 07 coming together. That's Kurt Van Hoenacker in the McChallenge BE by DB car. Now, I think those guys made contact earlier in the race, did they not? I think actually it was the 18 that made contact with someone early on, Stuart Musselwhite. I'm not sure who's moved over on who there, but they're both driving in a straight line, and you really don't need to make contact. Admittedly, Adam has been notably flamboyant in my touring car championship that I've been running. He's not scared of making contact with people, but it's just not necessary in a straight line there. Maybe they're just trying to vie for who's got the best black and green car. Bit of robot wars going on, but you know, it's a shame to see it when they're doing that in a straight line, but yeah, I couldn't quite tell who was to blame for that one. But we're not here to point fingers. We just hope that they both continue and manage to get back up there in their own fights. Now, Tim Perry is out on track. He is leading the race, and he's got some 6 seconds over Hendrik de Graaf, and Anton de Pan is another 3 seconds back from him. Ian Roots and Matthew Sufi still glued together in the Simracersworld esports cars. There is Anton de Pan in 3rd position. And there are the two Simracersworld cars. Now they have John Tusting right behind them in the 666, but John is not with them for position. He is a lap down on these guys at the moment. I think 2 laps down, actually. So they don't need to worry too much, but that is the big boss man, Ian Roots, and then Matthew Sufi. Jakub Smansky in the chat, good to see you, mate. Yeah, our lap counter for some reason says it doesn't. It has the 200, but it's hidden behind the drivers' names. You just see it for a second when the names flash through. It's 200 laps, so I'd say about 50 minutes if we stay under green flag to the end. Hasse and I will be taking a break in just a moment, and then we'll be with you until the end of the race, I believe.
Yes, indeed. As we do indeed to wet our throats. It just occurred to me that that's what you say in Danish, but it is indeed what you say. Well, it's strange, but that's how it is when this is a not your maternal language somehow. Even though I think, what there? I was about to say, just before we go on a break, we're gonna be just 5 minutes away. We're gonna meet you on board with the Hypno Disc of this race. It seems soaring high and above the rest, just full of class indeed, Tim Perry. And as we said, just about 5 minutes. We'll leave you on board with a whole lot of left turns to go. And well, don't move a muscle. Don't go anywhere except should want to visit the website of our race sponsor. That's DynamiXX with a double X.p. And go check out what type of, well, not only sim racing gear and solutions they can provide, but also in the world of paintball, which is something that I've tried before, and that's a lot of fun. With that said, 5 minutes it'll be, shall take. And we're back for the final bits and bobs of this race. Indeed, we are on lap 143. That leaves us with 57 to go. That's going to be just over half an hour's worth of green flag running here from the Daytona International Speedway. I think the track in the world that, maybe except for Indianapolis, who's also had both the Indy 500 and a Formula 1 Grand Prix, but the Rolex Daytona 24 and this race, this sort of event, at the same place, that kind of also adds to the legend and legacy of Daytona as the homes of motorsports worldwide.
Yeah, they call it the world center of racing, don't they, Daytona? I have to say I disagree, but to be honest, it really is a fantastic place, and a lot of sim racers and real world racers alike know it like the back of their hand, especially the road course, because of the Daytona 24-hour, one of the most grueling races of the year. It's usually one of the first endurance races of the year as well. It's very, very early on, usually in January. Here's an issue for Anton Depan. So he's gone past Spooner, and Ian Roots and Matthew Sufi. Have they overtaken him for position? They have. They've just soared past him like he wasn't there. I wonder what the problem was for Anton, because he's now... Maybe he knows that he needs the slipstream and can see that they're going quickly there. Maybe that was a tactical decision by Anton. What do you reckon?
I think very much so, and it's just that, again, the ability to think ahead of what's happening in the situation and know your car, know your tires, and know that, okay, I'm probably, if I've been caught by these guys, they're probably going quicker, and as such, joining the back of this bunch could be the best thing to do, and certainly battling for positions just going to cost even more time in the end. Very, very hard thing to defend from a car or from a train of cars, as we saw earlier, Chess, with the 3 Flemish cars coming up on Tim Perry. They basically just drove right around him there. So I think Anton Dupin had that in mind and has just chosen to settle in behind the 2 sim racers.
Yeah, he didn't wake up today and choose violence. He woke up today and he thought, I'm just going to keep a controlled mind in this race. You know, we've both commentated on Anton for so long. You know, he's a fantastic staple of the Simracersworld community. Really, really top bloke, really quick driver. That's Kurt Van Ho knackered. Not sure quite what's happened to him there, but he's not circulating anymore. He's now 16th place.
Could that be after this instance, in this situation? Maybe a bit of underfloor damage or something like that?
Potentially. My replay isn't being my friend at the moment. It's blinking like an absolute sausage, but I can't quite see what's going on, I'm afraid. I had a static camera for a moment there, so I'm not sure if his car had disappeared from my screen or something. Sorry about that. Oh, I've seen it on the live stream now, actually. Yes. Yeah, it's a good thing I've got that over to my left, isn't it? But, yeah, I'd say that had something to do with it, for sure.
That is very probable in... Now, these 3 cars at the moment, the 3 closest machines, now follow closely in terms of being close. Confusing way to coin it, maybe, but never mind that. Seb Herber, John Barnes, and Robbie Lundgren here in 10th place overall in the number 9 car. Was also racing for Boosted Motorsports last season. Much took the fight to both Lucky Dogs and to Down Under. Aren't racing here today. So, and we've had some kind of issue here indeed, Chess.
Yeah, smoke galore. Car getting going again. Who is that going slowly? It looks to me like Max Spooner is going slowly. And he is.
Good.
And should I say, what's left of Max Spooner's car is going slowly. And he's not had a good day, as Max. Is he coming into the pit lane? Is he not? What's he doing? Slows down. And is he driving on his phone or something? He's not turning left. He's in that sort of outside lane, isn't he? He's following the rules for staying in that lane on the right-hand side that the cars are told to get into. Filters across into his box. Maybe an issue in leaving the pit lane. Well, he certainly had one entering the pit lane as well. Overshoots his box there. People really need to learn where these red and green squares are on their liveries to change the colour of the pit machinery, don't they?
Yeah, indeed. He gets the tires fixed. But I'm just wondering, because we could see Chess, when we saw his car again, it was missing all kinds of body parts. And I was just a little bit perplexed as to how that happened. But it doesn't really seem we're going to be getting much wiser here, except for the fact that Max Spooner's back into the pit lane here.
Oh, and he's spooned the entry again, unfortunately. Back into reverse gear he goes.
Deja vu. Whoever coined the phrase, fool me once, etc.
Spooned me twice.
Oh, indeed.
Well,
we're getting into deep waters here, Chess and I.
Let's not get too romantic.
No, indeed. But
I know it's been a while, Hasse.
But a bit of a trailer of what's to come once we get the SRWF.
Yes. Hopefully, anyway. I still don't know whether I've got the job on something else.
Oh well, that's how real life is. If everything doesn't go the way, that's basically it. That's basically it. If everything doesn't go the way Chess wants it to go, we'll be commentating on the SRWF. Isn't that a nice thing to be able to tell yourself?
Indeed, it is. Well, to be honest, mate, I'm in a relaxed scenario right now. It's a Sunday evening here in the UK. The sun's been out all day. I've done absolutely nothing. I'm eating Nutella from a jar, and I'm commentating with you on NASCAR. It's a good day.
That's. I was just about to say that's my kind of man, but let's just not keep it. Let's keep it not too romantic. You said it's been a while indeed, but I just have to say I've found myself guilty of doing that very same thing before. Just wanted to put
eating
that
Nutella from a jar?
Yes, for this movie.
Oh yeah, I'm doing exactly that. It's phenomenal.
It's fantastic. A lot of people
keep
would
your toast.
A lot of people would be calling it blasphemy, but
yeah, my missus isn't a fan.
Well,
anyway,
back to the racing here, Chess, because it's still some action up ahead here. Tim Perry still, I was about to say still a lap ahead of everyone. That's not the case. But the gap down to Hendrik de Grave is 13.3 seconds. Now, he's still got one car for company. I don't think that's going to be enough to close it. Because they don't have that train of cars and that extra speed you get from someone being bump drafted by someone being bump drafted by, etc., etc. You know what I mean?
101 Dalmatians.
Exactly. Exactly. And as it stands, Tim Perry is in prime position to run away with this one.
Or get bumped out of the way.
Either or, we'll see just how it goes. Anything can still happen, and anything does indeed happen in oval racing as well. That usually does. Dupin here, as we said before, you asked me if he's just going to be hanging out. It certainly seems to be the case. The gap from him down to Adam Wright in the BSTV Esports machine, the number 27 car, currently 6th, is 24.3 seconds. So it's going to be a big ask of anyone in behind to be able to close that sort of gap.
Yeah, the real estate a bit too big there, I think, for those guys on that one. But a podium position is still up for grabs, although, to be honest, I can't wait for Ian to grab that third place if he crosses the line and finishes there. Only for me to remind him that there isn't a podium in NASCAR. There's only one winner. So I'd love to rub that in. But yeah, he's doing a good job so far at holding the guys off behind. But then again, he doesn't have to defend too much in this moment. Now, Rob Lundgren has actually got the two cars right in front of him, John Barnes and Seb Herbert. That's for position. So these guys, they sort of don't want to get too mischievous here behind Tim Perry, because it could really throw the race leader's win out of the window, couldn't it? Or potential win, I should say.
Very much so. Very much so. But I think at this point of the race, we're so far into it that they don't take any crazy risks around the race leader. And I think, well, in the same way, Tim Perry sort of needs the help of these drivers in behind in order to defend his gap down to the Flemish cars behind. Because if he was alone, he would be leading those 15 seconds off rather quickly and surely. before the end of this race. The end of this race that is now 44 laps away from us, so gonna be, well, 25 minutes or so, 30 minutes under green flag running, something in that order. A bit of scraping up the wall there for Adam Wright, as they are indeed doing the right thing and letting the leaders through on the low side. That's gonna be leaving them with less frustrations than some of the overtakes on lap traffic we've seen where they've been forced to go on the higher side. It's always a bit costly in terms of time.
Yeah, that's it. It's how you come down from that high side and manage the momentum. You know, I've seen a lot of times when people have been qualifying for the 24 hours of Daytona, they've been sort of staying up high on the banking and then coming gradually down bit by bit halfway around the corner to start getting a good run onto their fast lap. Here you can't do that, because to get up there in the first place you have to wash out very wide, give up the track position, and then people will be past you and it's just not easy to get back ahead of them. Max Spooner still in the pit lane, unfortunately, and I think it might be the end of his day here. Max had a bit of a nightmare in the Touring Car Championship. I mentioned earlier that I raced against him in on R-Factor, where we were racing at Thruxton in the UK, where in the Championship you have to run hard compound tyres for the entire race meeting. And Max forgot to change those in his setup, and he ran mediums all night and got disqualified from the entire meeting, unfortunately. But still, he's put some really strong effort in today, but unfortunately I think it may have just been a spin or maybe even contact on pit exit, but that's highly unlikely because there was nobody really anywhere near him at the time from what we saw. So he might just have lit it up too much and then been unable to stop the car before it hit the wall. This is a really, really interesting train right now, because we've got a lot of different drivers doing very different things here. We've got Tim Perry leading the race. Behind him, you've got Mathieu Soufi. Sorry, not Mathieu Soufi. Apologies. That's Sebastian Hebra. Yeah, it's Hebra. Sorry, I was looking for a Simracersworld car too far down the order there. Then you've got John Barnes, Rob Lundgren, Yves Frederick, and Adam Wright, all for position, right behind the race leader. This could get very, very dangerous if, especially the two black and green cars at the back fighting about who's got the best black and green car, start scrapping again, to be honest, because that could really turn this thing on its head and hopefully not affect Tim Perry, because that would be the worst way to see his race hindered in any way ahead of the guys behind.
Yeah, I was just about to ask, well, would you advise Tim Perry to just let him through and hold off and join the backside of his? Because in my opinion, it's even safer to be at the front than it is to be behind these drivers, so I think Tim Perry is probably going to be pretty happy just leading them around right now. His advantage down to Hendrik de Grave is continuously advancing, and it's now up to almost 18 seconds. I think it's going to be a very, very big ask for de Grave to close this in. Of course, barring any incidents. We did see not too long ago, indeed, that we were quite close to having one. Didn't. Doesn't mean we'll get all the way through safely. We also have a battle here, 3rd, 4th, and 5th on the road. In routes, Matty Soufi and Anton Dupin, the two Belgians on the tail of the big British boss. That, of course, boss of Simracersworld, the boss of it all. And so happy, actually, I am at least, to see Ian racing again. A bit of backstory going into this, but Ian had actually pretty much given up sim racing altogether. Basically just having lost the flame for it and such, and that's where NASCAR came back into Ian's life, and all of a sudden found the flame rekindled, so to say, and here he is for yet another season of NASCAR racing, not only being the boss of operations, handling the day-to-day running, but also actually putting the practice in and actually running in this series, and looking for a podium position here at the moment.
I think he was fed up of listening to me, to be honest, and the amount of times I've told him, no, I can't do that one, sorry, I'm busy. So I think he's just thought, oh, stuff it, you know what? I think I was single-handedly responsible for Ian's loss of flame in that. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this was a 6-car train before. It wasn't, was it? No, it was just 4 guys battling.
No, it wasn't. It was. Yves Fredericks was indeed a part of it, and we've got 3 drivers entering simultaneously. And look at Anton Dupin, he's trying a little bit of shenanigans here yet again. And they're basically too wide in the pit lane. But it's a risky one to go for. Now he's seemingly holding off. Let's see if they've... Oh, times it perfectly there.
It's a little bit naughty to go all the way down the white lane on the inside. All the way down the pit lane, if you ask me, but he gets away with it. Cheeky boy.
Just about. Just about.
They should be moving now. There you go. Decent pit stops. 12.5 seconds for Sufi. 12.0 and 12.0 for Roots and Dupont. And the order does not change, so that half a second in the pits doesn't make enough of a difference. Now it's about how they manage this pit exit. It's one of the most challenging parts of a race. Make sure you don't catch any of the bumps on that apron, spin up the rears, lose the traction. These cars may be fantastic at high speed, but on a flat surface without any camber assistance, they can be a bit of a nightmare. We've got Hendrik de Grave in the pits now from second place. Seb Heber is just going to go past. Tim Perry was side by side with somebody there for a moment. I think is that Adam Wright? Actually, no, Adam Wright's in the pits, so no, it's not him. Chaz is chatting absolute. Who is that behind these guys there?
I think that is Spooner, who's back on track in the 37 machine. I saw an E-Team Brit car with the front end missing. Well, that looks familiar. And
I think it was... Sorry, I think it was the car of... No, I don't know. It was one of them. Is the green car at the back there who's dropped off a lot, actually? Is that Yves Fredericks coming back on?
I think that might...
No, we saw Yves Fredericks coming out of the pits. I'm really confused right now.
That's
Yves Fredericks
out the pits, yes, indeed. And he's now 20...
It looked to me like he was side by side with Tim Perry all of a sudden a moment ago. And I don't know where I got that from, but it might have just been Max Spooner. Apologies.
Well, when you see something out the corner of the eye just before the camera cuts away again, it can be rather misleading. And things happen quickly here. I think you are indeed excused, so to say. Still the same situation. This is funny here because Tim Perry leading. This is the guy in second place, but he's a lap down. So even though it looks battle for position, it actually isn't until you get in behind, which is in sense that it very much is a battle for position between Seb Herbert, John Barnes, and Robbie Lundgren.
You'd think that Hebra now would actually go for it to try and disturb Tim Perry's race while he can. It's a little bit naughty, considering he's a lap down, and it's naughty of me to even think of that, but I think if it was me, I'd actually give it a go. You know, if you've got the chance to get ahead of him, why not? You wouldn't slow him down intentionally, but you'd at least make him work for it to stay at the front of that queue, I think.
The thing is that if an incident was to happen right after you passed the leader, you would get that lucky dog to come up. Field, so
yeah, that's argument enough to do it, if you ask me.
Yeah, indeed.
Oh, there you go.
All coming into the pits now. Let's see if it'll be as orderly as before. Tim Perry, very, very well timed. Under complete. Oh, almost touching there behind. That's John Barnes overtaking Seb Herbert more or less in the pit lane.
He was very quick on the way in, was John Barnes there.
Yeah, indeed.
Original pole setter. Oh, Perry had to reverse a little bit there. He overshot that box a slight bit.
Like Ted, I don't think it's going to cost him too much. Now, the interesting bit here, Chaz, is where are the Flemish cars going to be once we are all back to square running here?
Well, Tim Perry is already moving. Wow.
Well, there you have it. That was quick indeed.
11.7 seconds pit stop. It is the second quickest stop of this cycle. Rob Lundgren beat him by 100th with 11.72, but that's incredible from Perry. But importantly, he's behind the guys that he came in ahead of.
That entire bunch is also split up here. And that was, of course, yeah, because that was Robert Lundgren and Seb Heber now battling for 6th and 7th place. But they have indeed jumped him in the pits.
That's a very odd situation to be in.
And now Tim Perry, I think, behind his teammate who's battling another car for a position. Do you reckon they're just going to let him through here?
No. I think, to be honest, I think they will I know that Rob Lundgren will let him through. Rob's a very loyal teammate to have, fantastic guy to have on your team, but I think, to be honest, Hebra is just going to be thinking, nah, I could potentially be battling you for the race lead come the end of this, so you're not having it easy, sunshine. It seems like Perry's just holding off at the minute. The problem with being behind somebody here when you are a lap ahead, especially when you're theoretically in the race lead, is that if they have an incident battling in front of you, and you can get caught up in that, if you're ahead of them and they don't want to disturb you, then you are in the clear pretty much. So we'll have to wait and see what develops from this. But Perry, you can see he's sort of holding back a little bit at the moment, isn't he? He's not sticking right up behind Rob Lundgren to put his teammate under pressure. He's letting him get on with his battle with Hebra.
I think he knows by now that a 26 vicinity of 26 seconds of advantage down to Hendrik de Graave is going to be enough for him to make it all the way to the line. Now, interestingly though, Chaz, look at this. Hendrik de Graave, and then 2.7 seconds down to this train of Ian Roots, Matty Sufi, and Anton Pipin.
Now that is intriguing, because if these guys close up to Hendrik de Graave in time, and manage to close up to him, because the gap doesn't seem to change. Let's see what happens down the back straight. 2.77 as they started the lap. It's 2.6 now. Now down to 2.5, so they are making progress with that longer train. And with Hendrik de Graave doing this, with Kemba Haight going down the inside, that's going to help massively. It's less than 2 seconds now back to these guys. I think he knows that, and this could be a big train that works together to move forward on Tim Perry, but they're going to have to get him at more than a second a lap now, because we've got 30 laps to go, and it's 28.6 seconds from Ian Roots to Tim Perry in the race lead. So they're going to have to get a shift on here and really work together. They are going to have to master this. But it could be close, Hasse. It depends on how they quickly start catching him.
I think
he's got a group of his own, let's remember. But they are in front of him.
in front of him now. Yeah, exactly, because he could be hampered on the speed ever so slightly. I'm watching the speeds now on the straight. Let's just see who has the advantage. The pendulum swinging his way. Now, it has to be said, Tim Perry with that advantage of, well, over 28 seconds, almost 29 seconds. A second a lap in these cars on this track. It's very, very difficult to find that sort of time. Unless Tim Perry all of a sudden finds himself completely alone as to some kind of circumstance that causes it ahead of him. That could indeed be spelling trouble, even with that, I don't think he'd lose that much time. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah.
Just gonna have to see.
To be honest, his last lap time was a 46.3. Everyone else that's chasing him is doing 46.5s and 6s. So I think, to be honest, him being in the slipstream of these two cars in front is what's going to save his bacon here. But these guys could have an almighty scrap come the final laps of the race. They might have just conceded to the fact that they're not going to win the race outright. Obviously, Kimber Haight at the front of this is actually in 9th, albeit on the same lap as these guys, because the next car to lap him is Hendrik Graave, second in this queue. So try and remember that, everybody. But second down to 6th in this queue. No, because that's the Team Brit car, isn't it? It's even confusing me. That's Michael Tyler, I think, in that queue. And here's the other group, the other end of the circuit, which now includes Seb Herberer.
This battle for position still with Robert Lundgren as they have to make their way through on a bit of traffic here. That is, I think, Damien van Immerseel, who just jumps to the high side. Out the way. Perry now. Oh, John Barnes getting down ahead of, I think that was. Oh, that's one of the
James Hall.
Yeah, I think it is James Hall in the 68 car. Very much so. The 9 of Robert Lundgren. Being ready to fire. See how many bullets he's got in the chamber.
Yeah, it's almost like Tim Perry's holding him forward like a weapon, and he's just going to release him at any moment, isn't he? Into the back of Herberer to say, go on, get him out of the way. Down the back straight they go. Now our group behind these guys are all still very close together, but Hendrik de Graave is leading it, or at least he's second in the train. but he's leading Roots, Sufi, Dupin in that fight. So there's 4 of them in the middle of this that are fighting for 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th in the race, and then the ones bookending this group are not in the fight for position. Kimber Hay in car 86, and I think the other car behind them could be Michael Tyler, as Ian Roots goes to the outside line to make a move on the number 87 machine. So Ian deciding to push forward now. They've got enough cars in this to go 2x2 and make an effort of it. All of a sudden, the 3 Flemish cars are reunited with each other, and Anton Dupin takes advantage of that, goes down the inside, and Ian Roots is left hung out to dry now. Then they've got John Tusting putting pressure on Matthew Sufi. He doesn't want to come down to the inside now there, because it's the 96 of Michael Tyler that's there. Now Ian is hung out to dry, like I say, Hasse. He sort of dug himself in a bit of a hole here, and it's not a nice one to be in.
No, not at all, and they'll have to just see if they can slot back into that low line as quickly as possible. As I said it happened, and that's actually just ends up being Dupin taking the position from Ian Roots. Although as we're into the final 25 laps, well, these things will be settled here at the latter stages of the race.
Ian will be absolutely gutted about that. You know, he'll be annoyed at himself for letting that happen. He'll be shouting something along the lines of "No!" in his accent, which I've probably absolutely butchered, but he will not be pleased.
Spot on sounding to me, to be honest. But he comes though here on the outside. You're looking to take advantage of a bit of side draft there, but you can see once they hit the corners, they just don't have the grip being in behind. Oh, as I say that, he's actually managing to stay high there for a second, but I wonder if it's going to be enough. That is the Quantum car offering a bit of assistance maybe, but no.
Yeah, John Tusting's there on the outside shouting, pick me, I'll help you. If you want to go forward, boys, I'll help you. I need to get around this 96. Now they're actually fighting for position, albeit a lap apart at the moment. Michael Tyler is a lap ahead of John Tusting and 1 car right in front of him. Still, we've got 3 Flemish cars leading this great train at the moment with just 24 laps to go. So we're less than an 1/8 of the way from the end, and your race leader is, funnily enough, the 3rd car in this train, Tim Perry, who we're on board with now. It's been a very, very entertaining race so far. It's actually been made more interesting by the fact that we've got these groups, hasn't it, Hasse? You would normally think that that would be a bit of a buzzkill at somewhere like Daytona, but it's certainly kept us guessing and thinking.
It certainly has. It certainly has, and it's been different Daytona 500. It's had most of the caution periods relatively early in the race, and as such we've had a bit more of a loose structure to things, so to say, in the latter stages of this race. Made it different and maybe a little bit less open than you'll sometimes see. At least coming in for the win itself, at a gap of Tim Perry now up to 39 seconds. I might have talked to Mish earlier as well, because I've mentioned on several occasions that these cars are with 6-speed transmissions. However, as you can clearly see on Tim Perry's display, it says gear 5. So I'm guessing that they have indeed not made the jump from 4 to 6 speeds, but from 4 to 5, taking things in a nice, you know, chromatic progression. Sort of wanted to.
Yeah, again, it upsets me a bit that it's not H pattern. You know, the way that these guys used to really have to push the car through the circuit, basically, and really work that right hand. Obviously, most of these machines left-hand drive anyway, but they'd have to work very hard indeed. They actually sit very, very far forward in these cars and have their arms bent quite a lot. Hello.
There was a big incident in behind. Yellow flags out.
Oh!
Caution period here late in the race. Seb Herbera has been involved in something. Oh, there it is. He's standing still. Let's see if we can catch a better... Oh, my word.
Now, it says Rob Lundgren passed Seb Herbera here, so let's see. Oh, it's not Max Spooner, is it?
Little bit of a twitch there, you see. And then Lundgren, picks him up. This is right in front of the race leader as well. This is exactly what Tim Perry... Oh, and Spooners get picked up. And look at Tim Perry almost getting collected there.
He did. He did get a big hit in the front right. But it's Max Spooner again there, I'm pretty sure, that got involved in that. And he's just not been getting out of the way. I hate to say I saw it coming, but Tim Perry now has to make a decision on a pit stop. This is going to be very important for him, isn't it?
Yeah, indeed. I believe he would still have his fast repair at hand, so if everybody else chooses to take this pit stop at this point, I think he can get away with it and keep his... Well, I was about to say keep his advantage alive, but that is certainly not happening, because you'd expect the Flemish cars to come roaring back. Ian Roots, Matty Sufi, all of these cars on the lead lap will all of a sudden be in with an absolute shout for this one. Ian Roots almost overcooking it on pit entrance. So that was a late call for Roots to take the pit stop. And it might be a suggestion in that that everybody has to come in once more at least in order to be able to finish the race on fuel. Now we did see some very short pit stops last time around, so that might be what they're playing for. Here comes Tim Perry in as well. And now the interesting part will be if the Flemish cars can actually run that little bit longer, or if they think, well, no, the only thing we can do is take the pit stop under caution, and as such, that is what we're going to do. So a lot of things to monitor from pit lane here at the moment.
Yes, indeed. A real shame for the incident to happen, but at the end of the day, it spiced the race up with not too long to go, but Max Spooner will certainly be in trouble for that one, I'm afraid. He's got in the way of the leaders a couple of times, even from when I joined in from lap 90 onwards. But it's shuffled a few things about and sorted the order out in a way that none of us could have predicted, to be honest. But the pace truck now picks them up as they leave the pit lane, and we're going to have to do some maths, I think, on the end of this one, because some of these drivers, Hasse, are going to be unlapping themselves, staying in front of people in the train, and there's going to be a bit of shuffling around here. A very fast game of Tetris.
Yeah, very much so, and one with dire consequences if you get one. Not like you have a chance to misplace and just, okay, we'll get rid of that row. No. It's going to be dire indeed. Get it wrong. So we'll see just how they can sort this one out. But Tim Perry is going to be fuming, I'm afraid, this one, because he sat there on a 30-second advantage, basically clear to the line here. Mind you, less than 20 laps to go. So we're certainly getting in towards the pointy end of affairs here. And Tim Perry to have his advantage taken away from him rather brutally like that. It's gonna be a big blow for him.
Yeah, for sure. It's a big game about. Hello, Rob. It's a big mental battle now. He was just trying to see if he could get anybody else to go in, and I think he realised he was the only one doing it, and he thought, "No, I can't risk losing that much time to all of these guys. I need to stay out and just use what I've got left in this car." It was a decent call, but it was a bit of a late one for Rob. But I think he's made the right decision there.
I think so as well. So, current standings. The field is now lining up too wide, which means that, yeah, they're letting some of the cars through at least. We get a clean start at the head of affairs, and the guys behind are lining up now. Roots is back out as well. But he is not going to make it back up to this bunch before they make it to the line there, Chess, is he?
Well, I'm not sure. We've not gone back live yet, by the way.
Oh.
I'm not sure if he will, you know. He has got a long way to go. Although he is starting to slow down now, actually, so I think he has caught up with the train again. He's just going into the first corner. He's got a car in front of him there, which is Adam Wright in the Backfire SimSports TV eSports machine. And the rest of them coming through 3 and 4. So he's going to have to do a good job of slamming on the brakes and slotting in here, Hasse, but This is certainly going to be an intriguing restart and a great few laps.
A great few laps indeed. Just about 18 of them left here as the pace truck swings to the left-hand side, enters the pits, and it's go, 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 green flag, and boogity we're back to, as Team Perry has gone very, very early indeed. Gotten a bit of a jump on Hendrik de Grave, and Anton de Pan there to help out his teammate, and then Robert Lundgren completing the sandwich. That's kind of a Big Mac of Flemish cars in between a few bunts of boosting machine.
It's a fantastic looking and fantastic sounding train as well. Back up to full speed they go. Rob Lundgren now 4th place in the race, and that is on the road, and that is on merit as well. Fair play to him. Ian Roots making his way back through. He's got to pick through a lot of the traffic before he can get to this lead battle, but Rob Lundgren's done a great job to get up there. We've got 2 boosted cars against 2 Flemish cars, and then everybody else playing around in there as well. You've got the Kim Behate car just behind Rob Lundgren, and I hope for Rob's sake that Kim just stays where he is and doesn't worry about battling him and doesn't try to make anything of it at the moment. We've got the other Team Brit car in there with them, but still it's Tim Perry in that very wonderful purple and magenta car leading the way. There's the view back at the moment with 16 laps to go here at Daytona. You never know what could quite happen from this one. And as Jakub Smansky's just said in the chat, it is surprising that Perry didn't decide to pit. I agree with him on that one, because I was worried that he'd get a lot of damage from that, because usually if a car does bounce off the wall and then smack into the front corner of you, it can really hurt you in iRacing, but it seems like it's not done him too much trouble here.
Oh, but at the same time, just how much is going to pick off his top speed? They're still doing 317 here, Chess. And as such, it does indeed look like he's gotten away with it. Although, a bit surprised to see that. He did have this lap, so he was in this time around, Chess. Lap 181, so he's been into the pits. And I think he's had his fast repair. I think he's got everything fixed, and the car is now good as new.
Yeah, it looks all good now. Still carrying good pace, like you say, but these guys are going to keep him under pressure until the final laps of this race. He's got a long way still to go here. There's about 3/4 of a minute per lap. 14 laps to go, so you've got to say about, what, 10 minutes maybe, even more, about 12 minutes to go with this race. It could all continue to go well for Tim Perry, or it could go downhill. You never know. I'm not going to wish any sort of ill fate on him at all, but he's going to have to work hard now to keep the Flemish Sim Sports duo of Hendrik de Grave and Anton de Pan behind him. You can see that they're just making sure they fill his mirrors. But it's 2 Chevys sandwiching 2 Toyotas at the moment. Highest place Ford is Ian Roots in 5th place. And then we have the other Toyota of Kim Behate, but that's the only other Toyota in the field. Then it's an absolute array of Chevys and Fords. So these Flemish guys doing a great job of representing the Toyota, aren't they? They've done that for quite a while, as far as I remember.
Yeah, they have. They've been a thrown-out Toyota team all the way through, and surprised to see no other teams choosing the Toyota Camry base. Heard Jack Werrell speak about the fact that he preferred the oval Toyotas, and maybe a little bit surprising once you know a bit about his usual preferences, indeed. But you have to say, by this in this time and age as well, Chess, Toyota's been involved in NASCAR in quite a few years by now. I think they got involved in the early noughties. Has been a staple of the series ever since. We're still riding on board with Tim Perry. 13 laps to go now. So this is going to be heating up all the way to the line. And Tim Perry, I'm sure, would love for Robbie Lundgren to just be able to get around these 2 Flemish cars and just provide him with a little bit of shelter, a little bit of shielding to what's going to come from behind. Because you know it's going to be a storm. From the final few laps, the final 5 laps in particular, you could see the moves coming in all of a sudden, and I fear Tim Perry could get snatched on the line here after leading for a very, very long time indeed here.
I think you're right, unfortunately, but you can't blame the guys behind. They're just playing the game at the moment, doing exactly what you need to do to win these races. I said earlier, You don't need to worry about the first 3 quarters as long as you make it through and you keep yourself in a strong position for the end of the race. You don't have to be leading it all the way through. Tim Perry hasn't really had a choice in that. A lot of the other drivers have just sort of sat behind him and they're happy to do what they're doing right now, which is filling his mirrors, making sure that he knows he's still under pressure and that there's still other contenders for this race win. He's not got this one wrapped up. The caution will be very frustrating for him because he was involved in it as well. He saw it happen right in front of him. And I hope for his sake that he can have a nice, smooth run to the end. But you can guarantee that those 2 Flemish Simsports cars, looking absolutely stunning while they do so, will not make it easy for him. Rob Lundgren, he's probably doing the same as well, though, to be fair, mate, isn't he? He's going to be waiting until the final lap. Then he's going to make a push to see if he can help defend his teammate. I just really hope it doesn't end in tears here, because while we haven't had a massive grid, you know, we've had 21 cars, we still have 17 of them running at the moment. Kurt Van Hoenacker is out of the race, but we've still got 17 of them running down towards Max Spooner and Stuart Musselwhite at the back of the pack.
Yeah, indeed. So it's been atrocious, but not to the part where half of the field isn't going to see the checkered flag. But that we are indeed happy. I'm part of the drivers, of course, as well. Always frustrating to see your race end when no fault of your own. Tim Perry now, the pressure is really mounting on his rear end, and he's I think by now it's gonna be feeling the pressure, and this is a difficult position to be in as well, Chas, mentally, because you've been out there all by alone. You've been in a comfortable position, and you've been able to just sort of control the race. And sitting there with a feeling that you're able to at least control the race all the way to the line. Now there's absolutely no control over what the rest of the pack is going to do here. And now comes the attack from Hendrik de Grave on the high side.
Yep.
And he's got a teammate. He's actually got 2 because it's Kim Behate able to help in as well. And you can see just how Tim Perry is getting swamped. And he finds himself in 3rd place behind 3 Flemish machines. Mind you, one of them is being lapped now, or is a lap car. That's the car Kim Behate. But he needs to really stay in this slipstream. He needs the help of Robbie Lundgren here as well. Given that little bit of a push here, of course, 8 laps still to go, so it's not too late for Tim Perry to mount a charge. But Robert Lundgren carrying that little bit of damage, you just have to wonder whether it's going to be a possibility at all here.
That was a really interesting moment there, because as soon as Kim Behate got past Rob Lundgren, it was almost like the Flemish guys went, right, he's done it, let's go. Let's put our foot down, boys, let's crack on, pull the trigger, we will do this. There's a car slow on the outside of the circuit. That is one of the Simracersworld cars. I think that might have been Stuart Musselwhite. No, it was not, actually. Apologies. That was Matthew Sufi, I believe. Oh, no, Seb Herbera. There you go. I could have got one of 4 of them, and it chose to be the 3rd of the 4. I just knew it wasn't Ian Root. But either way, Tim Perry now, you can see him moving around. He's trying everything he can to get with these guys. All they're going to do now is hold that inside line, work together. I don't think Tim Perry's going to be able to come back from this. It's going to take something very, very serious for him to do this. And hopefully it doesn't happen below that yellow line, because that's a real pet hate of mine.
We haven't really seen anything but, you know, incidentally cars cutting across it, and that's nice to see. I think it's in the rules as well that you are not allowed to overtake on the left-hand side of that yellow line, and any having taken place down there deemed to be illegal in the end. I don't think Tim Perry's car is indeed damaged at all, so he seemingly still has the impetus as well to get on the tail of the Flemish cars, but it must be very frustrating for him now to have to round a lap car there, Kim Behate, who's of course isn't lapped, but he's just about to do so now. Robert Lundgren comes out to the inside as well. He might just have to get in there to help his teammate. And you can see he leaves the inside line. And as you said, Chess, that is the mark of a loyal teammate. Now on the high side, with the side draft there, with the dirty air affecting the cars as well. It doesn't look like Tim Perry is really able to do much about it, and slight gap opening up ahead of Kim Behate as well. Final 5 laps now, and that move could end up being the decisive one, making it a 1-2 for Flemish Simsports. And you can see by the antics of what Tim Perry is doing right now, he is not happy with Kim Behate being in his way here.
No, he's really not. And to be honest, you could see this coming to a head, and you would not be able to, you wouldn't blame any of them. To be honest, they're going to be fighting so frantically now to get this done, but it's been a real show of force by the Flemish Sim Sports cars. They had a lot of fantastic rounds last season. They had a lot of bad luck in places last season as well, but they're starting their account early here in a very, very strong position, showing how much of a solid team unit they are. Now, Tim Perry's trying to use some of that side draft on Kim Behate, but Kim is well in his rights to just stay there. You know, there's no sort of rule saying he has to let him through. He's a lap down, and look at them now. Now they're both side by side. They're losing a lot of ground. Kim is having to stay tucked onto that inside line. Rob Lundgren's now coming up behind Tim Perry. If Tim breaks this draft, then that's going to be race over, but he's got no choice here, Hasse. That's the painful thing for Tim Perry. He's got no choice but to push as hard as he can, and they're losing the two leaders in doing so.
Onto the final 3 laps we'll be going now, and it certainly looks to be swinging in the direction of Flemish Simsport, but who could have predicted that until that final caution period, it was going to be a 1-2 for Flemish here. Very, very close again, and he's not giving an inch in there, Kim Behate. Experienced driver as well. He's tried this before. He knows exactly what he can do here, and what a teammate to have as well. Playing his cards right, and, well, without overstepping any sort of boundaries, he's just proven to be a real nuisance for Tim Perry here.
Yeah, that's it. Like you say, everything he's doing here is perfectly legal. He's allowed to do this, as long as he doesn't purposefully take Tim out. But there's no need for him to do so at the moment. I mean, there's never any reason for it, but, you know, he's just doing everything right. There's your race leader, Hendrik de Grave. Anton Dupin, second place at the minute. Tim Perry looks like he's got around Kim. He's got a great run on him. I think the inside line is going to be so important, but we look at that behind. Look who's coming through here. That is Matthew Sufi in the 64 car. He's suddenly become part of this. There's contact between him and Behate. Perry and Behate make contact. They didn't need to do it. Is that going to bring out the yellow because Behate's around? I think it will, you know.
Let's see. Kim Behate.
It depends. Oh, no, if Sufi loses that, that's going to bring the yellow out, surely. It depends on if a car stops or not, or if it completely loops it. But I think as long as Sufi continues and Behate doesn't rejoin too dangerously on the circuit, I don't think... Oh, no, Kim Behate's lost it in the background as well. Oh, these boys are literally hanging a carrot in front of the iRacing flagman Barney. If they get onto the final lap, that will be it, though.
And I think it will. I think it will, because they're about to go onto the final lap. The white flag has been waved, and no caution here is playing into the hands of Flemish Simsports. Hendrik de Grave seems to be able to come through a relatively comfortable win here ahead of Anton Dupin. Tim Perry. Well, Chess, I'm going to be looking forward to having a word with Tim Perry after this one. I don't think he's going to be too excited. And to be fair to Tim, of course, he doesn't want to, if he's not in the mood for, let's say, chatty-natured things.
Well, I'd be interested to see what happened if we can have a look at that after the race and see who did what there, because that was very suspect indeed. But either way, Hendrik de Grave is about to wrap this one up, mate.
Yeah, yes, and let's see here. Anton Dupin's going to try and make a run for it on the outside towards the final, but he's not going to be able to, and it's going to be a checkered flag and a win for Hendrik de Grave here at the DynamiXX Daytona 500. And what a twist to the tail here at the end of it. Certainly no one could have seen that one coming. Tim Perry gets third on the day. He'll be fuming about that indeed. Robbie Lundgren, his teammates, gets fourth, and Ian Roots manages to get fifth. He was looking at something that could have been a podium at some place, but it didn't quite work out that well for him. Although,
he was almost a lap ahead of Barnes, wasn't he?
Yeah, indeed. John Barnes does get 6th place ahead of Matty Sufi and Kim Behate, who in more ways than one has taken a lead role in the race tonight here. Adam Wright finishes 9th, my apologies. And then it's going to be Michael Tyler, I think, for E-Team Brit in 10th place. Yeah. Whoa, that was quite the final there indeed here. And let's have another look at just what happened in that situation before.
So this is after they've made the contact. So Sufi got involved with it, I think, as soon as John Barnes passed Matthew Sufi. Because John Barnes and Sufi were fighting as they came through together. So this is what happened. Oh, Behate's come up. Behate's come up into Tim Perry there. I mean, Tim was trying to squeeze him down to the bottom line. But Kim's done that himself by that initial view. I'd be intrigued to see if we could have a look at the chopper cam on that one if you can, Hasse. So if you go back to when Barnes passed Sufi, we'll be able to see what happens. So there's Barnes coming flying through. Yeah, Kim goes up. Kim goes up to the right. And then Tim is very lucky to not get turned around in that. He does a really good job to continue, but yeah, you'll see they just suddenly go one way, then the other. It all checks up. And they were very lucky, all of them there, to not be involved in a bigger incident. Just watch Kim. Just comes up to the right. I'm not sure if there was any side draft affecting that from Tim Perry's car, because he did move left a little bit, but to be honest, it looks to me like Kim doesn't have to come off that yellow line there. There's no need for him to, other than to try and just squeeze Tim a bit and scare him, and it's backfired in a way that he wouldn't have enjoyed. So Tim Perry does get third place, but obviously your race winners very, very celebratory in their own moments there. Well, there's your result, and Hasse will take you through the final finishing order.
Well, indeed, it shall be my pleasure. After 500 miles of racing here at Daytona, we have a winner, and it is for Flemish Simsports Hendrik de Graave ahead of teammate Anton Dupin. And the two boosted motorsports cars of Tim Perry and Robbie Lundgren. Ian Roots gets 5th on the day ahead of John Barnes. Matty Sufi can behave in 8th place in the end ahead of Adam Wright and Michael Tyler, rounding off the top 10. Then Eve Fredericks for QSR's Racing. John Tusting for Quantum in the 999 machine ahead of James R. Hall for Team Brit. We've got DVI Esports and Damien Van Immerzeel in 11th place ahead of John Tusting, James Hall. Oh, I'm sorry, that's my bad. Van Immerzeel 14th ahead of Sepp Hebera. Stuart Musselwhite, Kurt van Hoenager, Max Spooner, they're finishing in 18th place. And just a bit of a scroll to get Jens Husens, Milan Phaetons, and Austin Gretorix in there as well. Oh, and as usual, this always seems to be the thing with oval racing and with NASCAR. This is one of the things I love the most about commentating these races, Chess, that every time we have a finish, I always find myself out of breath at the end here. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's fantastic racing. It's a hell of a lot of fun to watch. And to be honest, I know a lot of the drivers will be really pleased with their results in that one. But of course, our race winner will be the one that is over the moon the very most. And Hendrik de Graave, he deserved that, though. Any of the Flemish drivers that would have won that one would have deserved it in my eyes. They put together such a fantastic performance all the way through, working as a team. And it was just beautiful to watch. Really beautiful to watch indeed. And I can't wait to have a quick word with Mr. de Graave in a few moments' time.
Indeed, as we are.
See what he thought.
Yeah, we're gearing up towards these interviews, just waiting for the replay to count back and for us to bring you some pictures. But indeed, Chess, joining in on maybe unexpected terms here in the end, but nevertheless, for an interesting race. Was this actually your first oval, or I take it that you must have done something?
Yeah, I've covered the My Turn Racing Sunday Night Truck Racing Championship, which was a lot of fun. Those guys are a really, really good bunch. They've had me on a few Sunday nights. And I've also been the main commentator and broadcaster for the Vertex Stock Car Cup as well, which I've been doing for 3 seasons now, and a couple of their special events as well. It's a fantastic sport, and like you said before, there is so much precision required in all of it that you really have to respect the drivers and the teams and everybody that puts all the effort in behind the scenes here to make sure that they take the win, because it's just so difficult. And much as I said in the comments earlier on, it's like karting. It's so savage. You either win or you don't. If you've not won the race, no offense to anybody that hasn't won the race today, but in the real world of NASCAR, if you haven't won the race, no one cares where you finished, because you didn't win the race.
It's true, and to make another cycling analogy, in cycling you say second place is the first loser, and I think it's very much the same bit of culture here in oval racing and in NASCAR.
Yeah,
the winner takes it all.
Yeah,
and the winner,
no disrespect to anyone, of course.
The winner, Chess, we have him ready to talk to you. You are the king of interviews here, and I'll let you have a check here with Hendrik de Graave.
Hendrik, welcome to the booth, my friend. I'm sure you weren't expecting to speak to me today. But first of all, how do you feel? That was an absolute belter, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was a terrific race. I really thought that Tim had it, and then the yellow flag came. So we were very lucky that the yellow flag came and that Tim had to pit then. But otherwise, Tim would have definitely won this one. But yeah, really, really good teamwork. I think teamwork brought us the win and the second place, so really happy.
I was going to say, you ran a very, very tight formation with your teammates in that one, and it seemed like no matter where you ended up, even if one of you was on your own for a minute, it wouldn't be too long before you all suddenly got reunited on the track once again. And it certainly looked like you were having a lot of fun out there with it, but I know that a lot of the time in the cockpit it can be very, very focused, and it's not the most fun environment, but you're still very much in the moment enjoying it. Did you all have smiles on your faces throughout, or was there a lot of focus going on there? Because it seemed like there would have been a bit of both.
Yeah, it was definitely a bit of both. I think the only thing that got us here was the teamwork. We really had awesome teamwork. So I would like to thank Kim and Anton for that, because otherwise we would have had nothing here. So that was really awesome. So,
of course, fantastic way to start your championship as well. Was it a race that you were expecting to win coming into this, or was it one that you sort of went into not really knowing what could happen?
Yeah, and really not knowing what could happen, because I didn't really had enough practice with the cars, and it was really difficult to know what the other guys would do. The only upside for us was that we were with 3 cars, and Tim and Robert were only with 2, so we had 1 car more. So I think that eventually gave us the victory.
Yeah, it was amazing teamwork, like I've said. Absolutely fantastic to watch. And just a moment on, obviously, these new next-gen cars. What do you make of these NASCARs compared to some of the older machinery, if you have experience in them, of course?
Well, I really like them. They steer very light, but they're a bit harder on the drafting. Also, the bump drafting is a bit more difficult, I think. So that's something that we still have to get used to. But otherwise, I think they're fine. I like the other ones a bit more with the side drafting. You had a bit more advantage there, but they're quite good. I like him.
And they certainly look the part as well. And like you say, with the bump drafting, these cars are a little bit rounder at either end than the older cars used to be. But of course, the next race will be at a very, very difficult circuit, I know for sure, which is Homestead, Miami. Are you looking forward to that one, or is it a track that you don't really know what to expect much from?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a hard one as well. It was really a tough one here, so it's going to be equally hard for us in the next round. So,
well, I certainly look forward to seeing it, Hendrik. Even if I don't end up commentating on it, I will certainly watch to see how you get on, mate. Well done again from both of us here. Is there anyone you'd like to give a quick shout out to while we've got you?
Well, again, my 2 teammates, Anton and Kim, and also our sponsor Viraco for giving us the opportunity. So thank you guys.
Thank you very much for joining us, Hendrik. Well done, mate. Enjoy your evening.
Thank you.
Fantastic to hear. Sorry, go on, man.
Oh, sorry. I was just getting so used to cutting across at this point. It's. I was just about to say that was Chas Drakert with the race winner Hendrik de Grave, and I'm about to go have a chat to a lad who's probably not too pleased at the moment. Let's hear from Tim Perry. Tim, thanks for taking the time to chat with us here in the booth post-race. And eventful finish before that final caution. It looked like you had it all in the bag, and I'm expecting that you're left with a bit of frustration after that one.
Yeah, it's one of those things, I think. We're just driving along going like, oh, please no caution, and then, we ended up kind of causing the caution ourselves. So it was, one of those things really. But it was a great race at the end of the day, and it's always good having that kind of caution towards the end of the race just to spice it up. So I'm not too disappointed really.
And you and Robert seem to have some really good teamwork going. The same, but well, you could safely say the same was the case for the Flemish Simsports team. They had an extra car on you today. Did you feel that made a difference out there in the on-track battles?
To be honest, when there was 2 of us, we worked so well together. Like massive hats off to Rob, because he did a great job today, and we were kind of scouting when they were putting out runs, and we were kind of timing our runs together to get to the front. And when it was 3 versus 2, it was kind of fine. But at the end there, Rob had damage from the crash, and so his car wasn't quite up to speed. And 1 versus 3 was just way too much. And then using their kind of lapped car to block as well was very clever. And I just had no chance really.
Fair game to the Flemish cars then, and graceful in defeat, so to say, as well, Tim. That's grand of you. Great to see, I have to say. I think had it been me, I would have been in a, well, not necessarily sour mood, but just bitter, perhaps, is the word to use. Anyway, first race of this new season, this next-gen car done. How'd the car work for you today?
Yeah, it was really good actually. It was my first ever race, so yeah, with the car, and yeah, it felt really good. It almost feels like too good compared to the last one, so it's like it's almost too easy to drive. But obviously, when you're doing 200 laps of Daytona, that's actually just what you want, really. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it will pan out going forward, though. I'm quite looking forward to trying to learn it.
And what are your perspectives of the remainder of this season? You seem to be a legit, genuine contender. You've been so for the last few seasons as well. Been very, very close to touching with the absolute top. Now you seem to be at the absolute front. Are you hoping for any championship chances to come your way this season?
Well, I'd absolutely love to go for championship. Unfortunately, I do another series on a Monday, World GT, and that doesn't finish for a few weeks. So obviously I could do this one because it's on a Sunday. But I'm going to miss the next few Mondays and then kind of join back again sort of halfway through the season. So yeah, it's a bit annoying, but you know, it should still be fun, and I'll turn up and try and get a few wins.
Tim will be looking forward to seeing you back on track then, and hoping that it'll still be able for you to have a fight in terms of the overall standings. Before we let you off the hook here, is there anyone you'd like to give a thanks or a shout out to while you're?
Yeah, obviously massive thanks to Rob. You know, he did a great job today. We communicated really well, and obviously thanks to you guys for running the league. There aren't many European NASCAR leagues out there, so yeah, fantastic to have you guys doing one.
Thank you, Tim, and thanks for taking the time to have a post-race chat with us, and hopefully next time around it'll be a little less on the receipt.
Fingers crossed.
Ladies and gents, that was Tim Perry, who finished third today, and we're going to have a final interviewee to come in here and have a word with Chaz Draycott. Going to be the big boss, Ian Root, so two gentlemen that know each other quite well.
Yes, indeed. Well, hello there, Mr. Roots, and welcome to the broadcast booth, somewhere that you're not too much of a stranger from. That looked like a very lively race, mate. I was really intrigued to see how you got on. You were sitting in what would be a theoretical podium position for a while, but fifth at the end of that one after all that went on seems like a pretty good result. Would you agree?
I'm over the moon. I certainly didn't. As you know, I've not been well, and I didn't think I was going to last 3 hours, to be honest. But I'm over the moon. It was a good race. We worked well as a team. We didn't have enough fuel to get to the end, so we were praying for the yellow to come out, which it did. The yellow come out. We went in. Trouble is, pit lane closed.
Oh, no.
So pit lane closed, and we couldn't get out of pit lane, which meant we had to go to the back of the pack, which meant I lost connection with that front group, which I was a bit gutted about, to be honest. But I'll take a fifth all day long. If you'd have told me at the start of the day I'd have been fifth tonight, then I'd have shook your hand and taken it. So yeah, really pleased.
Well, like you say, it's when you have that sort of slipstream connection to the cars in front of you. It's a massive high-speed game of chess around Daytona because you are flat for the whole thing, and you've got to be so precise with your inputs, as Hasse and I have touched on today. But you know, having a teammate there, such as Matthew, around you, helping out, it really does just give you that extra bit of confidence, doesn't it? Because if you do go for a move and it doesn't quite work, you know, there was a moment where you tried to get around the Flemish cars and you had to sort of slot back in and concede that it wasn't working. To have a teammate there sort of protecting you and working with you on that, it really gives you that confidence boost, doesn't it, when you go for stuff like that?
Yeah, definitely. And having Matthew in the team, he's really the team leader, to be honest. He's taught all of us everything we know. He's a seasoned vet in NASCAR from pre-iRacing days, and he really does know how it works. But having him around really does kind of give you confidence. He lets you know what you need to do. He's given us all the commands all the time. The chat is constant. It's like having, you know, another spotter with you in the car, which is fantastic. But these next-gen cars, it's the first time I've raced them properly. They are fantastic to drive. Really, really different to the old gen. But if you bend the aero on them, whether it be front or rear or even side, you're done. Your race is done. They are so aero specific, these cars, and they are so fickle. So you need to be as clean as possible, and that's why I got to 5th, because I managed to keep the car clean all the way through, and that makes a massive difference.
Yeah, definitely. That was one thing that Hasse and I noted, was the fact that you were all over it. You know, you were still fighting for positions, you were still cracking on, but you didn't have any sort of big dramas, really. You know, you were going for moves where the time was right, and you were trying to improve your position, as everybody would. But unfortunately, like you say, that pit lane closure really sort of put a bit of a stop on the progress forward to maybe get a podium position. Although I did say that I was looking forward to ribbing you if you did finish 3rd, because they don't do podiums in NASCAR, but that's just part of the racing. But honestly though, mate, you know, remaining unbiased, it was still great to see you get a 5th place there. And of course, like you say, you've been very ill recently, so I was taking my hat off consistently to how fast you were while you're out there as well, mate. So I'm sure it's been fun. Homestead Miami next up, though. That's a very different kettle of fish, a real difficult oval to get right. What do you reckon for that one? Is it somewhere you enjoy?
My favourite track of the season. I ran really well there last time out, and in season 1 as well. It's one of those tracks where it's flat then lift, and if you don't get the turning right, then the lap is ruined. So it's a very, very technical track. I do like it personally. I think as a team, we'll run very, very well there. But obviously, with Boosted and Flemish Sim Sport, they're a force to be reckoned with, those two. So yeah, there's going to be some good battles all season. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, and it's fantastic to have been a part of this today, albeit last minute. You know, not fantastic in the circumstances for poor Jack, but yeah, it's been great to watch it, and obviously great to commentate on you guys having all the fun out there. Any thanks that you'd like to give out before we let you go, Ian?
Yeah, just all the drivers really. Obviously, it's still in its early days here. It's not attracting the big numbers we would like, but we're getting there. The series is going from strength to strength, and just a thanks to all the drivers for their support and dedication and coming back for season 3, and long may it continue.
Yes, indeed. I second that, mate. Well, thank you very much for joining us in the box, buddy. Well done on your result, and go and have a well-deserved rest for the continuation of the evening. But thanks again, Ian. We'll see you soon.
No problem. Take care, guys. Thanks again.
Cheers. Stuff. Always good to speak to Ian. Not quite sure what happened there, but my connection disappeared for a moment. That was always lovely. But yeah, fantastic race, to be honest, Hasse. It's been really, really entertaining to come in and be a part of this one. Obviously, unfortunate for Jack with his issue for earlier on, but apparently due to something he's just put in the chat a moment ago, that should be sorted for future rounds. But it's another very enjoyable night here on Simracersworld TV, and it's been good to get back in the box with you, mate.
It's been way too long, and hoping that we can get the chance to do the F3 together as well. That would smile, indeed. Thank you all for joining us tonight, and our apologies for whatever technical issues we had befallen us at the beginning of the stream. Thanks to Jack Werrell for joining us as well, and well, it has indeed been a pleasure. The coming week here on Simracersworld, as per usual, we're past the summer break now, and there's plenty of action coming up. So on Saturday, we have the opening round of the Porsche Club of Great Britain International Series. Starting out, we're going to have a doubleheader on Sunday with the Sunday Drivers MX-5 and the Sunday GT Masters. And then, of course, next Monday, so that's September 13th, we're going to have the next round of the SRW NASCAR Next-Gen Cup Series. So plenty of action to look forward to here on SRW TV. As for me, I've been Hasse Rømer, joined by Chas Draycott and Jack Werrell in the booth today. It has been a pleasure having you all along. Give us a like if you like what we've seen. Subscribe for more great iRacing live content here on Simracersworld TV. And with that said, until next time, take care, have fun,